How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
is the end. There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final genocide. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the dystopia. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the dystopia. This is the final sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be out you.
Well, fancy seeing you guys here. Welcome back to stream number 2 of the day. We're going live a little bit early on this stream because our spy stream got sadly canceled. Because they booted us out of the meeting, and that actually hasn't happened in like a really long time. And it taught me an important lesson about maybe not being so lax in the security of my spy streams, and maybe we'll be bringing back the supporter exclusive spy stream is the only way we do it. We've just gotten away with so much lately that I thought we'd probably be okay. But you know what? I actually don't think that we missed like all that much, so I'm not actually really upset about it. The big spy stream that people want to make sure you come to is not the one we just got booted out of. It's the one that's going on later tonight. Because later tonight at around 9:30 p.m., we will be doing a supporter exclusive spy stream. And there's a reason it's supporter exclusive, and I'm going to explain what that is. In which we're going to be going inside a real live radical revolutionary socialist organizing call. Now, if you've been watching my public spy streams lately, what you have seen are mostly progressives. Maybe a little bit of Democratic Socialist of America. But for anyone who has not yet experienced a true radical revolutionary socialist organizing call, what you will experience on this spy stream is significantly different than the spy streams that we've been doing publicly for the last couple weeks. The reason that we are doing this as a supporter exclusive stream is, quite frankly, most of my spy streams are supporter exclusive because it's a nice little perk for people. But the biggest reason we're doing this is security, because it makes it a lot easier to get away with infiltrating their meetings if I'm not doing it publicly on the internet. Because the sad reality is I have a lot of people who hate me on the internet because they're unhinged psychopaths. I have unhinged people who watch every single stream that I do just to try to mess with me. And by the way, most of those people come from the conservative right. They're not on the left. They're actually on the right. And so I'm sure what happened with the spy stream we just got booted out of is our psycho friend, fat ass Jill, or one of her compatriots, because psycho Jill is a woman that stalks my channel literally every public stream I do. I am sure that she was watching, and I'm sure she sent them a little email. Did you know that she's doing X, Y, B, and Z? And I'm sure that's what happened. And do you know how we get around that? We make it a supporter exclusive stream, so I don't have to deal with that shit. And that is what we're going to be doing later on tonight, and it's going to be awesome. But until then, we're going to watch us some classic socialism content, because this week we are making our way towards the Socialism 2025 conference. The Socialism 2025 conference is going to start on Thursday evening. And leading up to the event, I thought it would be a nice time to go back and revisit some classic socialism streams from socialism conferences in the past, so that new people can get caught up with what it is actually like to be at this conference. The Socialism Conference has been around for a long time. We actually kind of have access to stuff as early as like 2012 or something like that. There are some YouTube channels that have really, really old stuff from the Socialism Conference. Most of the time we watch like 2022 through this year, because that's just their newer content, and there is a ton of it on the internet. The Socialism Conference does stream a lot of their conference presentations out of Chicago. Well, actually, not even a lot. I shouldn't say that. The Socialism Conference picks select streams to live stream out of Chicago starting on Thursday evening. However, the overall schedule at the Socialism Conference is enormous. There is a ton of content that's going to be happening in Chicago that is not going to be streamed live on the internet. We may eventually get SoundCloud recordings of them, but there is just a ton of socialist organizing going on over the next week. What we're doing is going back and watching some classic episodes, just in case new people haven't seen it. And today we're going to be doing an insane abortion episode. If you have never seen a real live social reproductive justice advocate, just hang on to your hat, because this is a panel. It's not just her, but she is the craziest one on this panel. Who you are about to meet is a person that I actually covered for the first time back in 2023. Her name is Dr. Mary Bowman. Hey, Sean, did you think I didn't know about that and sign up with a Rhode Island zip code? Did you think I didn't think about that already? You guys underestimate me. You might be a channel member, but don't underestimate me at all. I've been doing this a long time. I already knew what it said because I already went to the website and read it, and I already signed up with a Rhode Island zip code, and that didn't work out. So they were paying attention in another way, and that's probably how they found out about it. Don't ever underestimate me, guys. I've been doing this longer than you've even known this stuff was going on. Anyway, so I first watched this episode when it happened back in 2023. I was actually undercover at the conference in 2023, so I did not see this live. It was streamed and we watched it later, because why would I go to the sessions that were live streamed anyway? I was at the conference to go to the stuff they weren't videotaping for me. So in this presentation, you are going to say Dr. Mary Bowman, who is no, that's not what I wanted. Is a current faculty member at DePaul College of Science and Health, a faculty member, an assistant professor of nursing. You're going to hear them. You're going to hear they them pronouns, and what they have to say about abortion and reproductive justice and the gender binary and all sorts of crazy stuff. And anyone that has never had a good intro to queer Marxism, this is an excellent intro to queer Marxism. because she's going to go through all the main talking points. So that's what we're going to do, guys. We're going to watch this presentation. We might actually get into, I think Stony Baloney was trying to get me to watch something from the RCA. Maybe this one. I'm not sure exactly which one he was trying to get me to watch, but we might have some extra time and we might watch some RCA stuff after this, so stick around for that. But can I just complain about one thing before we get started? Check this out. Did anyone see this post from Stop Anti-Semitism on Twitter? I just want people to look at the video. Don't read the post. What do you see in that video? Actually, let me turn on the chat on the screen so that you guys can chat in and the screen will show it. What do you see in that video? Just don't pay attention to what they said. What do you see in this video? Explain to me what this is. Just without reading any explanation at all. You see a triangle, but what kind of triangle? There is a triangle. What kind of triangle? An upside down pink triangle. That's an upside down pink triangle, isn't it? That's a pink triangle. What does that mean? That's a queer anarchist pink triangle. That's a queer Marxist pink triangle. That means bash bag. Oh, you guys are so smart. The upside down pink triangle. No, Tom. No. Tom, you've been watching a lot of my content lately, Tom. Why are you still listening to conservative influencers that lie to you? Why are you still listening to conservative con artists? There is no universe in which this is a Hamas triangle. That's retarded. It's an upside down pink triangle. It's a bashback triangle. It's not a pride triangle. It's a bashback triangle. It's a queer Marxist triangle. It's a bashback triangle. It literally says gay shame in the middle of it. And if you don't know what gay shame is, I'll show you what gay shame is. It's an upside down pink triangle. The ACT UP movement. Yup. Exactly. Well, Tom, I told you not to do that. So perhaps we need to work on our listening, don't we? Just like I told you yesterday, you needed to work on your listening. The 3 times I said, don't read what they wrote, just look at the video. Listening, Tom. Listening. Listening is a virtue. Pink triangle, that is Marxism. Exactly. Queer Marxism. Yes. Let's see what Stop Anti-Semitism had to say about this. The radical anti-Semitic group, Gay Shame, marched during this weekend's Dyke March chanting Death to IDF, and resistance is justified, while holding a hate banner that reads Dykes Hate Zionism with a red Hamas triangle. The triangle, as you zoom in on it, says Gay Shame. There is no fucking universe in which this triangle, this image, has anything to do with Hamas. Nothing. The pink triangle has been a queer Marxist activism sign since the 80s. It was reclaimed by the ACT UP movement, which was one of the initial militant queer activist movements that rose up against the Reagan administration to try to get Reagan to speak out against the AIDS epidemic. The ACT UP movement did all sorts of direct action, all sorts of die-ins, all sorts of publicity stunts. And guess what? They had a poster with a pink triangle that said silence equals death. And this is an iconic poster. You can Google it if you want to. It's actually in a museum. That's how iconic this is. They still wear that on t-shirts. And the reason they used the pink triangle was to reclaim it from World War II, where gay concentration camp prisoners had to wear a pink triangle. So they reclaimed the triangle. And then at some point, the triangle got turned upside down and is now a symbol of militant queer anarchism. And the reason we know this is a queer movement and has nothing to do with Hamas at all is because I'm smart enough to go to the Wikipedia page for Gay Shame, and I linked it in the comments for Stop Anti-Semitism too. I am smart enough to go to the flipping Wikipedia page. Gay shame is a movement from within the queer communities described as a radical alternative to gay mainstreaming. The movement directly posits an alternative of gay pride events and activities, which have become increasingly commercialized with corporate sponsors, as well as the adoption of more sanitized mainstream agendas to avoid offending supporters and sponsors. The gay shame movement has grown to embrace radical expression, countercultural ideologies, and avant garde arts and artists. It is an anti assimilationist movement. It is a queer Marxist movement. So, no, an upside down pink triangle that literally says gay shame, there is no universe in which that's a queer Marxist triangle. Now, Tom, now you're starting to piss me off, Tom. Now you're starting to piss me off because you have a whole chat of people that's telling you what that thing is. And it seems to me, Tom, that you're not listening. So, Tom, you're going in a 24-hour timeout. The reason you're going in a 24-hour timeout is I don't want you to be able to speak. You can come back tomorrow if you want to, but you will not speak for 24 hours on this channel. And hopefully in that time, Tom, hopefully you will be able to sit back and listen to what is being said. Because if you're just going to ignore when we try to teach you something, if you're going to ignore evidence that's right in front of you, but when you get your fees hurt because you're not given the answer that you want to be given, when you're ignoring everyone in the chat that's literally trying to reason with you, that's when I'm going to say it's time to go in a fucking timeout, go to the back of the room, sit down, shut the fuck up, and listen. And if you don't want to do that, then, I don't know, you can go somewhere else. That's it. Not that big of a deal. So stop anti-Semitism is wrong. Gay shame is one of many militant queer activism movements. And when you see an upside down pink triangle with the words gay shame, they don't like Israel because Israel represents the settler colonists, the capitalists, the bourgeois. It's the same reason they don't like America. By the way, it has nothing to do with Israel being Jewish, has nothing to do with Hamas, nothing. They also don't like America being the settler colonists. Like, they don't like America for exactly the same reason as they don't like Israel. We have covered this 9,000 ways from Sunday on the channel. The far left does not care if people are Jewish. Every time you see propaganda accounts like this stop anti-Semitism bullshit, every single time you see propaganda accounts like this lying to you, that is an indicator that you should never, ever, 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 ever listen to that account again. Because if they're willing to lie to you about something so simple, what else are they willing to lie to you about? So that's that. I'm glad that my audience is smarter than the Jews on Twitter. Per usual, not that we have anything against Jewish people. Jewish people are fine. We love bagels. The Holocaust definitely happened. Hitler was the worst person that ever lived. If we don't proclaim that at least 10 million Jews died in the Holocaust, we will be accused of being anti-Semites. If we don't proclaim that gas chambers have wooden doors, we will be accused of being anti-Semites. If we don't want to send all our money to Israel, we will be accused of being anti-Semites. So, of course, Israel can have all our money, and we will send American lives to die for Israel because obviously Israel is more important than America and all that stuff. We don't allow anti-Semitism on this channel. But I don't think it's anti-Semitism to say that stop anti-Semitism is obviously and clearly wrong. They have misinformed their audience. And I'm allowed to call that shit out because facts don't care about your feelings, motherfuckers. All right, yep, bagel supremacy. Yep. You want a breakfast bagel? Bagels are never the wrong answer. I'm just saying. They're never the wrong answer. All right, guys, what we are going to be doing today is we're going to be watching a classic episode of the Socialism Conference. If you guys feel like supporting the work I'm doing, feel free to send in a super chat. I do have a $1,000 super chat goal for the week. We're actually already almost 30% of the way there, which is pretty rad. Another way you can support my work is by heading over to the Substack, karlyn.substack.com, signing up as a member on there. If you want to do Venmo or Cash App, you can do those QR codes. The red QR code goes to the Substack. And we're doing a little fundraising this week because I'm creating a metric ton of content. And, I'm spending a lot of time with you guys. We're hanging out a lot. I'm just asking you to take care of the situation so, I can spend so much time with you. We are going to be watching a classic episode from the Socialism 2023 conference. This is about abortion rights and trans rights. And if you've never seen radical revolutionary socialists talk about abortion, you are in for a treat. Everyone, mount the like button for me. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Feel free to comment in the chat as we're making our way through. Let's get this party started. Let's see. Let's find when it starts. This brings back such memories of when I went undercover at this conference. Such memories.
Books, Haymarket Book Room.
Yes, they still wear masks. They still do it to this day.
My name is Mandy Medley. I use she, her pronouns, and I'll be chairing this session. Welcome to Fighting for Our Lives, Abortion and Trans Rights Under Attack with Dr. Mary Bowman and Ann Rumberger. This talk is sponsored by our friends at Lux Magazine, which you can find in the Haymarket Book Room. As a reminder, all Socialism Conference attendees are required to wear masks, fully covering the nose and mouth while indoors in conference spaces, including hallways and meeting rooms. Speakers from the front of sessions may remove their masks in order to deliver their presentations, but only while actively speaking, and audience members are still required to wear masks even while asking questions or making comments. The mask policy is in place to protect all of us, especially the immunocompromised, from the risk of contracting COVID-19. The conference community safety...
I just want to pause there. This was in 2023, but I want to pause there to remind people they're not wearing masks to protect their identity. Most of the time when they're at the Socialism Conference, they're not on video. Most people at this conference weren't ever on video. They required masks because wearing the mask is an element of community care. It's how you demonstrate being in solidarity as a comrade, because you are responsible for caring for everyone else in the community, and that includes the immunocompromised, and you wear the mask as a sign that you are engaging in community care or community love with other people in the community so that they take care of you, you take care of them. They're a sign of solidarity, resistance, and protection. Exactly.
Safety plan... the conference community safety plan relies in part on badge checkers at the door, and all attendees are expected to wear their badges at all times to enter the conference meeting rooms. Please respect our hardworking badge checkers and know that they're here to keep a safe conference. And you can see registration if you have any questions. And finally, we do have some attendees who require translation services, so we appreciate your understanding if your people are talking quietly to each other during the session. And I know we have some great talks coming up, so I'm just going to get right into introducing our speakers. First will be Ann Rumberger, who is an activist with Chicago for abortion rights and a writer on reproductive politics. And she does have an article coming out.
Hang on. How do you get a badge? You buy one. But I really want to emphasize this to people, okay? I would not go undercover at this event if I was you. The only people that I would recommend going undercover at an event like this is if you have been studying socialism with me for at least a year and you've actually been serious about it. You haven't just been dicking around. You haven't been in and out. You have to know all the language. You have to be fluent in the language. The reason I say at least a year, you have to be fluent in the language to go undercover at this conference. So it's actually not just as simple as you buy a badge and you show up. If you stick out, they're going to be suspicious and they're going to kick you out. If you don't integrate with them, if you show up and you're trying to own the libs or do something stupid, which I'm sure you wouldn't do that, Southpod, but I'm saying that someone would. It's not going to work. I promise you. Also, the goal of going undercover at something like this is you are literally sitting in a room with these people all day for hours and hours and hours, just listening to what they're saying. And if you don't speak the language, then you are not going to understand what you're listening to. So anyone can buy a badge to this conference. That doesn't mean I think it's a good idea for people to go if they don't have the experience. Listen, I became fluent in their language before I ever went undercover at this event, and I was still nervous about it because these people are actually serious. These are militant activists. You don't fuck around with these people, okay? Andre, thank you for the super chat. What do you think will be the first socialist to take over the United States? No, it will not be the Democratic Socialists. I keep telling you, like they believe in elections. The Democratic Socialists are never going to take over the United States via elections. That's never going to happen. CCP, the way the government is spent, I don't think that's the way it's going to go. I think what's going to happen is they're going to violently overthrow the government. I think it'll be radical revolutionary socialist groups. I don't know exactly which ones. And I think they're going to radically or violently overthrow the government. I think that's how it's going to happen. But who knows? I don't think it'll be the DSA, though.
Out in the next issue of Lux, again, one of the sponsors of this panel. And then we'll hear from Dr. Mary Bowman, who is a nurse practitioner specialized in sexual and reproductive health.
Oh, you said domestic. Sorry, I read it wrong. You said domestic. I read it wrong. My bad. It'll be the revolutionaries. I don't know. My answer is the same. My answer is, even though I read it wrong, my answer is unchanged. It'll be a violent revolutionary group, and I don't know which one.
Gender affirming care and abortion provision. They are an assistant professor of nursing at DePaul University, and they have been a reproductive justice activist for over a decade. Thanks. Anne?
Yes, they have the numbers. They absolutely have the numbers. They have the organization. They could probably do it right now if they wanted to, but they're still convinced it's not time yet. But yes, they 1,000% have the numbers, and there are more of these people than you guys. There are more of these people than conservatives have any effing idea.
Okay.
Actually, before we get into it, I actually have something I wanted to say earlier in regards to this. Okay, so Bookmark said earlier, I'm curious how many casual people getting indoctrinated in these universities know what private property means. I'm shocked by what we're learning here. Bookmark, here's the thing. They know explicitly. The reason I know is I have them on video saying it over and over and over and over and over again. The left is not confused about these issues. The right is confused about these issues. The people who have never listened to the left are the ones confused. The reason that you're confused and the reason you're shocked by everything you're learning here is you have never listened to the left before. And so you're coming in not having this knowledge base. And I'm not trying to make you feel bad. There's probably a lot of things that you know that they don't, right? But you never learned this because you never interacted with this. And therefore, you're saying, well, do they actually understand this? Yes, they understand it. You do not. And that's why you think they don't understand it, because you're projecting your lack of understanding and lack of exposure to this information onto them. I promise you, we've seen this a million times. No, well, you probably don't know her that well then. You probably don't know her that well then. If she is using their language and she's learning about socialism, then her values are probably not what you think they are. Just a thought.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the long history of the Christian rights attack on abortion access and trans and LGBTQ rights, and why it's so important for us to recognize the agenda behind these attacks so that our movement for bodily autonomy.
Oh yeah? You've been listening to them for the last 4 years intently? Tell me, educate us. What's the left's definition of capitalism? Go. This is only for G.I. Joe. No one else answer this question. This is, you want to come into my chat and say, I've been listening to them and I know everything? What is the left's definition of capitalism? Bro, you don't even know how many of these people there are. What is the left's definition of capitalism? Guess what? You've never listened to them. You think you're listening to them. You're not listening to them. If you've never seen this stuff before, you are not listening to them. So tell us. What is the left's definition of capitalism? Go. No helping. You've been listening to them intently for 4 years. What is the left's definition of capitalism? If you don't answer, I'm going to ban you from the channel. If I ask you a direct question and you remain silent, which for me is one of the most disrespectful things that you can do, you will not be around my channel for very long. What is the left's definition of capitalism? So you haven't been listening to them. So the correct answer is I don't know. You don't know what the left's definition of capitalism is because you don't understand the left. No, bro. No. You're going to shut the fuck up and listen. If you don't know the left's definition of capitalism, you know nothing about the left. You know nothing. This is basic 101 level information. So you might think you've been listening to the left, but you have not been listening to the left. You've probably been listening to clickbait bullshit that you see on Fox News or Libs of TikTok or all this stuff. The reason that you don't know the left's definition of capitalism is you have never listened to the left. So, your job is I never, ever want to hear you say anything in my chat again about, I've been listening to them forever, because now you know that you have not been listening to them. You've been listening to some retarded clickbait bullshit that you didn't even understand what you were looking at. And it's fine if you were, like, I don't want people to feel bad if you haven't seen the real left, but what you're not going to do is come into my chat and say, I've been listening to them for years and I know everything about everything, because you don't know shit about shit. So now your job is to sit down, shut your mouth, and listen. If you have a question, you can ask a question. It has to be related to what we're talking about, though. But that is your job right now, and I don't want to see anything else from you in the chat.
Economy can more effectively work together against this common enemy. Understanding the ideological goals of the religious right and how they see reproductive freedom and trans liberation as threatening to their hold on power will help us shape our own messaging and strategy. The attacks against abortion access and trans existence are part of the same playbook, undermining our right to self-determination while propping up a patriarchal system of white supremacy and Christian nationalism. 22 states now ban abortion or restrict the procedure earlier in pregnancy than the standard set by Roe v. Wade. And nearly 20 states have now restricted gender-affirming care, and they both often take the route of criminalizing doctors and professionals who provide that care.
As a reminder, this is in September of 2023.
Just as those who aid and abet abortion care are also being criminalized and targeted. So one question that can help us guide our strategy is, how will conservatives maintain their anti-abortion extremism when legal abortion is actually very popular? In state after state, when voters have had a say, abortion rights have trounced conservative proposals for abortion bans. Republicans are going to keep insisting that their 15-week nationwide abortion ban proposals are moderate, knowing that the majority of people support legal access to abortion, especially early in pregnancy. Anti-abortion advocates have so effectively advanced their agenda and moved the conversation to the right that they may be hoping to convince the country to accept a nationwide 15-week ban as a compromise. This would be a devastating compromise, and it could get very complicated because over 90% of abortions happen in the first trimester, and many people who support legal access to abortion are also somewhat uncomfortable with later-term abortions. So abortion advocates, we all have to work to educate the public about the importance of access to later-term abortion care, and we have to be able to hold the line that there is nothing moderate about banning abortion, no matter the limit, and we have to fight for legal and free abortion at any point for any reason.
Free and legal abortion at any point for any reason. Pop quiz for the chat. Why is this something the left wants? Why is free legal abortion at any time for any reason something the left wants? Waiting for your answers. Why is legal and free abortion at any time for any reason something the left wants? Abolishing the family? Yup. It is an attack on the family. Well, do you know what that means? You're not wrong, but how? Yup, it's an attack on the family. It frees women from doing the unpaid reproductive labor of having and raising the future proletarian workers. Nope, depopulation has nothing to do with it. The real radical revolutionary far left never talks about depopulation. There's maybe one book out of tens of thousands of socialist books about depopulation. So no, this is a conservative bullshit narrative. This is more about WEF and techno-fascists than it is about the radical revolutionary socialists. So the WEF is a completely separate group. It's not related to this. Bill Gates is a completely separate thing. It's not related to this. So no, it has nothing to do with depopulation at all. Families do reproduce capitalism. It liberates women from the nuclear family by disrupting disrupts the reproduction of capitalism. Yup. It's not really about fewer anything. They don't actually care about the number at all. The point is that you are liberating women from the unpaid role of performing all the reproductive labor and care labor, and it liberates them from the gender binary, which is also called the patriarchy. It is a rejection of capitalism. Yup, correct. Abortion frees women from the unpaid labor of birthing and raising a child. Yup, true. Nope, completely false. Wrong, completely false. To relieve women of the unpaid labor of childbirth. Yup. Let's see. Mostly right answers. Mostly right answers. If anyone has any questions about this, please feel free to ask. It's not really about parental rights because the child isn't being born. And so it is true that they want to end parental rights, but the abortion stuff is not actually directly related to parental rights. I understand why you might say that, but it's not. It's a different thing. Who's going to do the childbirth if women are relieved? Well, first off, they do have kids. They consider, okay, so when socialists say reproductive justice, they're not just talking about abortion only. Socialists have kids. Socialists have entire childcare programs. Socialists have socialist games that they play with their socialist kids to train them how to be good socialists. They want women to have the choice to liberate themselves from that role if they want to, but that doesn't mean they don't have kids. But secondly, who's going to do the childbirth if women stop giving birth to kids? There's going to be surrogacy and pod babies. And we have them talking about that too. Are these the same people advocating males get a uterus implant? No. I mean, no one's really advocating that. I don't know where you're hearing that. That's not a real thing. What I will say is they are trying to figure out, this is actually real. I've covered this. They are trying to figure out how to gestate a baby in the cadaver of a dead body, or not even the dead body, not a cadaver. I shouldn't say that. In a brain dead body. So the body, I guess, is technically still on life support or something, and they're trying to figure out how to gestate the baby in a body of a brain dead person, and that could be male or female. But I've never heard about the uterus thing. That's not real. Disrupt the social systems of capitalism via the nuclear family and liberates women from the unpaid labor in their homes, the capitalist social construct of what a woman is. Yup. Well done. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was just talking about. The brain dead human gestating thing. That was covered on the Substack back, I think, in 2022, I believe. Yeah, I'm not even joking about that. You guys can find it on my Substack. Should I find it real quick? Hang on. Brain dead. Here it is. I'll put it in the chat. We got a little extra time. We can take our time here. We don't have to be done till like 9:30. They want to incubate surrogate children in brain dead women. Seriously. I wrote about this February of 2023. And this isn't based on an article. I'll just scroll down. Oh, we talked about Sophie in this. In an article called Whole Body Gestational Donation. Actually, let me get this up. Is it still up? This is a real thing. Whole Body Gestational Donation. Whole body gestational donation offers an alternative means of gestation for prospective parents who wish to have children but cannot or prefer not to gestate. It seems plausible that some people would be prepared to consider donating their whole bodies for gestational purposes, just as some people donate parts of their bodies for organ donation. We already know that pregnancies can be successfully carried to term in brain-dead women. There is no obvious medical reason why initiating such pregnancies would not be possible. In this paper, I explore the ethics of whole body gestational donation. I consider a number of proportional counter arguments, including the fact that such donations are not life saving. They merely reify the female reproductive body. I suggest if you are happy to accept organ donation in general, the issues raised by whole body gestational donation are differences of degrees rather than substantive concerns. In addition, I identify some intriguing possibilities, including the use of male bodies, perhaps thereby circumventing some potential feminist objections. Who told you about this in February of 2023? I'm just saying. So, yeah, that's a real thing. You're welcome. You're all welcome. This is the dystopian nightmare that never ends.
Yeah. So, who are these conservatives who are leading the fight against abortion and trans rights? And why have they been so successful despite their unpopular agenda? So, one of the most effective and dangerous right-wing organizations behind many of these anti-trans and anti-abortion assaults is a group called the Alliance Defending Freedom.
The Alliance Defending Freedom. Let's go back to that. Renan, thank you for being a member of the channel for 12 months. There was that woman who was brain dead and gave birth to an underdeveloped baby. It happened recently. Leftists were blaming Republicans for the cruelty. Well, who knows? Who knows?
Boo.
Boo.
The Alliance Defending Freedom have laid the groundwork to defeat Roe for decades, and the anti-abortion movement in particular has been able to cohere around a shared mission and shared ideology. So despite their differences in strategy, their shared goal of ending legal abortion and upholding traditional gender norms has allowed them to present a united front and a coherent message. The legislative success of the Christian nationalist movement to restrict access to abortion and curtail trans and LGBTQ rights has been a long time coming. Right-wing forces have been gaining political power and influence over the last 50 years, building a network of legal advocacy groups, lobbying firms, think tanks, and academic and cultural institutions that together have been remarkably effective at advancing their conservative agenda. Under the guise of protecting religious liberty and family values, the Christian right has worked to undermine protections for LGBTQ people and chip away at access to abortion. So the Alliance Defending Freedom is a legal advocacy group. They were founded in 1994 by 30 leaders of the Christian right, including James Dobson, founder of Focus on the Family, and Bill Bright, founder of the Campus Crusade for Christ. Boo. Since its founding, ADF has expanded its operations abroad as it battles abortion access, LGBTQ equality, and what it considers the myth of the separation of church and state. So designated a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center, the ADF advocates for policies that will uphold traditional gender norms, eliminate queer and trans people from public life, and end all access to abortion. So the ADF works to develop religious liberty legislation and case law that will allow the denial of goods and services to LGBTQ people on the basis of religion. During Trump's presidency, the ADF became one of the most influential groups informing the administration's attack on LGBTQ rights. Alan Sears, he was the head of the ADF until 2017. He co-wrote a very influential book that was first published in 2003, and it's still widely referenced, that's called The Homosexual Agenda, Exposing the Principal Threat to Religious Freedom Today, which claims that radical homosexual activists have the family and particularly innocent, vulnerable children in their sights.
Oh, no!
The ADF now has over 3,000 allied attorneys who have sworn to oppose marriage equality, abortion access, and deny gender identities. And this group has won 15 cases at the Supreme Court since 2011. The ADF has trained thousands of lawyers, many of whom have gone on to government service at the federal, state, and local level.
I just want to point something out. They're doing a whole case study in opposition research. And they do this all the time. They do stuff like this all the time, where they do presentations at conferences like this, where they do in-depth analysis on who the primary organizations are that they have an issue with. And they train everyone else about here's what that organization is doing, and here's who's involved with this organization, and here's what they believe based on their perception of it, of course. But I just want to point this out. The right doesn't do this at all. And by the way, in case you think these people are mentally ill people don't do this either. Mentally ill people don't sit back and go, let's do a strategic analysis of our primary opposing forces to get the policies that we want. They want their policies because of their values. They want their policies because of how they view the world. And you can argue they're indoctrinated into a cult. Well, yeah, I would actually argue that too. But that doesn't change the fact that they see the world in the way they see it. They have the values that they have, and they are being highly strategic and pragmatic about how they're going about achieving that. The right does not do this.
Levels. The organization also provides grants to other Christian right organizations and presses school districts to adopt its model policies on issues like transgender facility access. As the courts have ruled in favor of marriage equality over the past decade and our country has become more secular, the ADF has positioned itself at the very center of the efforts to curtail LGBTQ rights and have particularly focused on attacks on trans acceptance in public spaces, all under the guise of religious freedom. At the 2018 Evangelicals for Life conference, ADF Senior Counsel Denise Burke declared that lawmakers in Mississippi had introduced the nation's first ever 15-week abortion ban based on ADF's model legislation.
Exactly.
This bill was designed to provoke a challenge from abortion rights groups that would make its way to the Supreme Court, which it did with the Dobbs case that overturned Roe in June of last year. We're basically kind of baiting them, saying, come on, fight us on turf that we've already set up and established, said Denise.
Well, so DJ says, if I wasn't listening to their own words and talking points and someone told me this, I would think they're batshit crazy. Yeah. Why is that? Could that be because your media has lied to you about who the left is? I bet most people have never actually even seen a reproductive justice, like an actual talk before. The first event I ever went undercover at the left was a reproductive justice conference. This is what it's like. They sit around and they talk and they educate each other and they talk about their opposition and they're very strategic about it. And it's like, I really think the right believes that what the left does when they have their events is they sit around and yell at the sky, or they just get really angry, or they just like, they all look really weird and they're just like, I mean, and some of them do look weird, but this is what actually happens at their events.
Burke at this conference. Once we get these first trimester limitations in place, we're going to go for a complete ban on abortion, except to save the life of the mother. So this is what they're saying in 2018. The Alliance Defending Freedom has also brought the case challenging the FDA's approval of the abortion medication mifepristone. A federal appeals court ruled recently that mifepristone, one of 2 pills used in medication abortion, should not be prescribed past 7 weeks of pregnancy or prescribed via telemedicine. That case is being directly challenged by a parallel case brought by 12 Democratic-led states, which have sued the FDA to challenge federal restrictions imposed on the distribution of the abortion pill. So these are 2 conflicting cases. It's sure to lead to a Supreme Court hearing, possibly as early as this fall. And given the court's recent track record, providers are bracing for mifepristone to be less available in the future, which would be devastating as over 50% of abortions are now done through medication abortion. Another strategy that the ADF employs is pre-enforcement challenges or legal challenges to non-discrimination ordinances that protect LGBTQ people before a business is found in violation. So the 303 Creative versus Elenis case that was recently decided by the Supreme Court and which rolled back non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ people was filed in Colorado in 2016 by the ADF. They claimed that Colorado's non-discrimination protections are unconstitutional because they infringe on a Christian web designer's freedom of speech and limitation. I'm sure you've all read about this. That Christian web designer had never actually designed a wedding website, but somehow had legal standing to bring this case. This expansion of the use of religious freedom to chip away at legal protections for minority groups is part of the Christian right's long-term agenda to impose their patriarchal religious values onto the rest of society. The Guardian recently reported that the ADF has seen a huge increase in its funding and has funneled some of that money to a slew of smaller anti-LGBTQ and anti-abortion groups. The ADF saw its revenue surge by more than $25 million between 2020 and 2021, a period in which a right-wing obsession with transgender rights and sexual orientation saw almost 200 anti-LGBTQ bills introduced in states around the country. It has donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to fringe organizations which have sought to diminish the rights of trans students in schools and the right for trans people to participate in sports. It has also donated money to groups involved in efforts to ban books which address LGBTQ topics and to organizations which seek to ban abortion. So that's the Alliance Defending Freedom. There's so much more we can say about them. I'd love to hear questions and people's responses in the talk back about the ADF and what we can do to oppose them. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the less covered strategies that the secular wing of the anti-trans and anti-abortion movements have been using to advance their agenda. So faux leftists provide cover for a largely religious and deeply conservative agenda to impose strict gender hierarchies on an ever-secularizing society and to control the bodies and the lives of those of us they deem incapable of making our own decisions. A very small minority of
I just want to point out strict gender hierarchies. When they say the gender hierarchy, they mean the patriarchy.
To advance their agenda. So faux leftists provide cover for a largely religious and deeply conservative agenda to impose strict gender hierarchies on an ever-secularizing society and to control the bodies and the lives of those of us they deem incapable of making our own decisions. A very small minority of anti-abortion and anti-trans groups claim to be motivated by left politics, and these groups need to have their harmful and regressive ideas exposed. The TERF movement, which has been present in the UK for many years, is growing in the US. These are so-called radical feminists who purport to be motivated by feminism and fighting women's oppression when they advocate against gender-affirming care for minors, for bathroom bills that surveil and punish people, and pretend to be protecting women's sports by banning trans athletes from competing. Women's Liberation Front, co-founded by self-proclaimed radical feminist and environmentalist Leah Keith, is one very prominent example. They claim to be an organization for women resisting patriarchy in all its insidious forms, and their work includes defending sex segregation of domestic violence shelters and prisons, defending sex segregation of women's sports, bathrooms, and locker rooms, supporting detransitioners in their struggle to be healed, and working to abolish prostitution and pornography as forms of violence against women.
Okay, I just want to point something out. So this is something we see in our friend Sophie Lewis's new book, Enemy Feminisms, that someone graciously got signed for me by Sophie. What Sophie talks about in this book, Enemy Feminisms, is, listen, there are a lot of people who say they're feminists, but that doesn't mean they're really feminists. The only true feminists are anti-capitalist feminists who believe that trans women are women. So when you're hearing the reproductive justice advocate kind of like rail on the TERFs, and I think most of us can agree that the TERFs are fucking insufferable, but when you're hearing the social justice advocate, the abortion advocate, rail on the TERFs, it's because she doesn't believe the TERFs are real feminists. She doesn't believe that J.K. Rowling is a real feminist because they're not anti-capitalist and they don't believe that trans women are women.
Anti-trans groups like Women's Liberation Front, masquerading as radical feminist organizations, need to be exposed for the harm that they cause. The anti-abortion group Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising call themselves leftists, atheists, progressive liberals, prison abolitionists, and pro-union. They've carved out a niche for themselves in the overwhelmingly religious, conservative anti-abortion ecosystem to argue for the rights of the unborn using secular arguments and co-opting social justice language. They delight in causing confusion with their signs and slogans. Some of my favorites are end the abortion industrial complex, women's rights begin in the womb, telling women you won't be free without abortion is misogyny, and the preborn are us, we keep us safe. They
the
regularly
crowd?
invade abortion clinics and try to convince patients in the waiting room not to follow through with their planned abortions, often getting arrested. A few of them were actually recently convicted of federal charges recently. And in Washington, D.C., and that was for a clinic invasion that they did in 2020. Their pseudo-progressive politics attract a lot of media attention and allow anti-abortion leaders to use them as an example to show that not everyone in the pro-life movement is motivated by conservative religious ideology, when we know that is the majority of people in the pro-life movement. PAAU draws on the tactics of the early pro-life movement, which were directly inspired by the civil rights movement. So they use civil disobedience and direct action in an attempt to shut down clinics and physically stop people from getting abortion care. And I wrote a little bit about the PAAU their co-optation of civil disobedience tactics and social justice rhetoric in the next issue of Lux magazine. So that's coming out in the fall. So our own movements for abortion access and trans liberation, while often very creative and confrontational, have been largely reactive and defensive. Can we go on the offensive and have a longer-term, more comprehensive strategy incorporating direct action tactics in a more meaningful way and use sharper messaging for our demands that more clearly link abortion access and trans liberation? That's a big question. Another argument that I see utilized by religious right opponents is the framework of human rights discourse and moral outrage. Both the left and the right use language of human rights, possibly muddying its effectiveness as a helpful framework in our fight for self-determination. The anti-abortion right often cites the human rights of the unborn and arguments for fetal personhood to claim that fetuses and embryos deserve to have the same legal protections as any other citizen. Anti-trans advocates also argue for the human rights and protection of children against what they cast as predatory woke parents, teachers, and doctors who are forcing harmful gender transition procedures on innocent children. So we need to challenge all attempts by the religious right to use this moral language that grants more agency and rights to fetuses than pregnant people, and resist letting this language dictate the terms of the debate. Arguing for a more expansive vision of what reproductive rights and human rights should entail will give us the power to move the mainstream conversation from one that's about rights, which are easy to limit and co-opt, to one that's about justice, self-determination, and collective liberation. So, as Maura Donegan said in a recent article in The Guardian, both abortion bans and transition care bans further the same goal: to transform the social category of gender into an enforceable legal status linked to the sexed body at birth, and to prescribe a narrow and claustrophobic view of what that gender status must mean. I do want to talk briefly about a handful of somewhat positive developments that we're seeing to defend abortion and trans healthcare. So in September of last year, the Chicago City...
Hang on. Breaking news. A large group of protesters shut down the 6th Street Bridge in downtown Los Angeles. There's video above showing dozens of protesters. These look like tenants' rights protesters. They're talking about an eviction moratorium. There are a lot of tenants' rights groups in LA. We're going to see some tenant rights stuff this weekend with the Socialism Conference. There's a large sign that reads "Sick of ICE" and a parked truck that reads "ICE out of LA." So my guess with these guys, if you've seen the Los Angeles shutting down the road, my guess is that these are immigrant rights organizations and tenant rights organizations. We don't see a ton of these types of organizations, but it's usually, my perception is it's usually a little bit haphazardly organized compared to the people that we do normally watch. Oh yeah, that's right. It's the day off sick protests. Yeah, they were all supposed to call out today. Yeah. I wonder how big the protests actually are. I haven't seen anything about it.
Council passed the Bodily Autonomy Ordinance that ensures that no city department or agency will participate in any investigation or proceeding related to reproductive and gender-affirming care by anti-abortion states. That's a good thing. Following the end of Roe, 10 states have also passed shield laws to protect patients and healthcare providers who offer abortion via telemedicine or abortion to patients who are traveling to their state from states that have abortion bans. But we should also keep in mind that these shield laws and executive orders are pretty untested, and they're likely to be challenged in the years to come. So it's hard to really count on those as a long-term strategy. The movement for abortion access is stretched very thin right now, but we need to be very proactive and to anticipate the next attack from the anti-abortion right. They have made it very clear that they're working towards a nationwide abortion ban, towards increased surveillance and criminalization of patients and providers, and some are moving to restrict access to contraception. They're doing everything possible to get the abortion pill taken off the market, or at least to heavily restrict its use. Many abortion funds right now are cash-strapped after the initial outpouring of donations last summer, and the need has only increased. As important as abortion funds are, we all...
Who knows what an abortion fund is? Pop quiz in the chat. I need to know if I need to explain what an abortion fund is. One in the chat if you know what an abortion fund... Well, actually, no, let me just say this. If you know what an abortion fund is, explain it in the chat. What does she mean when she says abortion fund? Yeah, Bobby, this is basically it. Yeah. So the left has a lot. Okay. So mutual aid is how a lot of things are funded on the left. What does mutual aid mean? Well, at its core, mutual aid means some people give money to a mutual aid organization. The mutual aid organization distributes that money to people who need the aid. The mutual aid organization is generally set up as like a nonprofit, so you can do like tax deductible stuff, but it may not always be. Sometimes they're very off the books. Sometimes they're very anarchist organizations, like they're not even an official organization. But there are some organizations that are mutual aid that are nonprofit. There are some that are just like a regular thing. There are some that are just totally anarchist, off the books. There's no official record of them and all that stuff. We're not talking about NGOs. This is not what we're talking about. Mutual aid is very, very small. These are small organizations. Yes, it's like communal funding. So a lot of people believe that the left is funded by Soros, USAID. They've got all this money. No, they don't. Most leftist organizing and activism is funded via mutual aid, which is not a ton of money. But there is money there because, again, remember why I told you the left is wearing masks at this conference? They believe it is their responsibility to care for everyone else. This is not a LARP. They actually do believe that. So the mask is not the only way in which they care for everyone else. Mutual aid is also another way that they care for everyone else. So they donate money to their favorite cause or their favorite organization or what have you, and then that organization distributes the money and the resources to people who need it. That is how almost everything is funded on the left. One of the things that they use for that type of funding is they fund abortions for low-income people. There are a ton of abortion funds or abortion mutual aid organizations that their entire reason for being is to fund abortions for low-income people. So that's what they mean when they say abortion fund. It's like if you wind up pregnant and you don't want to be pregnant and you don't have the money not to be pregnant, you go to a mutual aid organization and the mutual aid organization will pay for your abortion. That's what it is. It's not even necessarily rich people. I wouldn't even say it's all rich people. I would say it's people who... There are a lot of people who donate to mutual aid who are not rich because they believe it's their responsibility to do it.
Should be donating to abortion funds if we have the ability to. We cannot rely on crowdfunding our abortions forever. We need to push states to fund abortion providers and abortion support networks, which California and New York have recently done. They're not perfect, but they have put aside some money for abortion providers. We need to expand insurance coverage of abortion. We need to be integrating abortion and gender affirming care into primary care. And of course, the most important fight is we need all healthcare, including abortion and gender affirming care, to be completely free and completely accessible. That's a big fight, but that's what we're going to do. So our lack of resources and the many fronts that we need to fight on mean that while we're supporting direct service providers and funding abortions for the many people who need
I just want to point this out. Our lack of resources. This is their conference. They're not making a video on the internet to talk to us. This is their conference. They are saying at their conference that they do not have a lot of resources. Any ads you see coming out of Craigslist in which they're saying they're paying protesters are lies. Just to be very clear, these are lies that conservatives plant because that's what they do. They are telling you they are not a well-funded group of people. And they're saying this to each other, you know? So they are paid through big money groups to riot? No. These people are not they are not. No, you don't. No, you don't. The reason you think everything is funded by Walmart and the reason you think everyone is funded by... So actually, let me just ask the chat. Let me ask the chat. DJ, you're still relatively new, and so you're going to learn some stuff today. For the chat, why does DJ believe that the radical revolutionary far left is funded by Walmart and George Soros? There's a reason that you believe this, but we're going to tell you what that reason is. It's probably not what you think. Why does DJ believe that Walmart and George Soros are funding the radical revolutionary left? The reason you believe that is you've been lied to by conservative media and influencers. Conservative media and influencers have lied. The clickbaiters on Twitter have lied because influencers lied, because Fox News lied, because conservative commentators lied. Because conservative commentators lied. Because mainstream conservatives lied. Exactly. You believe that Soros and the radical left are the same group. They're not the same group. Soros does not fund anti-capitalists. That's true because it's a conservative point. Yes, some people have thought that until recently. There's no shame. It's okay. You think that because you have been lied to. I am very, very sorry. Progressive groups are funded by Soros and Walmart, not radical revolutionary groups. Soros and Walmart only funds things like Indivisible. Indivisible doesn't work with these people, guys. This is why I harp on knowing the different groups all the time. They funneled their wealth and power to the Democrats and maybe the liberals and the progressives on a good day. No, no, that's all fake, bro. That's all fake. That is all fake. I promise you. I've seen some of those videos. It's absolutely 1,000% fake. And again, I've been undercover at their events multiple times. They literally don't do that at their events. I have literally never seen a radical group actually do that. So every single time one of those interviews come out, it's like, it's so hilarious. It's like, no, you're just lying. You're just lying. Do I have a spreadsheet of them? Nope. Not yet. Maybe I will someday. Anyway, so no, these are not well-funded groups. They are funded by mutual aid. They're not funded by NGOs. They're not funded by USAID. They're not funded by George Soros. All you heard on conservative media was absolute and total bullshit. I'm very, very, very sorry. Well, conservatives can believe whatever they want, but conservatives don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So, you know. Anyway.
We also have to be focused on long-term strategic planning to affect big change. If we're going to defeat the Christian right, we need to expose their endgame of entrenching white Christian patriarchy.
DJ has had a breakthrough. DJ, yes. See, DJ, this is the correct attitude. Can everyone give DJ a round of applause? This is the correct attitude, DJ. When you realize how much bullshit you have been fed by all conservative media because they've all lied to you, welcome to the team. Many people in my chat have gone through the same experience. I went through the same experience. I was actually on their fucking shows, bro. I was used by them to prop up some of this bullshit. That's how I figured it out. Because I knew what was real and I knew what was fake. It's all bullshit. So I'm very sorry for anyone who is discovering that you have been lied to for the first time. But this is like the tip of the iceberg of the bullshit that they have lied to you guys about. And that is why we literally only use primary sources on this channel. That's it. You never have to question if I'm lying to you because you see it for yourself. And by the way, if I ever say something that I don't provide a piece of primary source evidence for, question me on it, push back on it, say, Karlyn, where the fuck did you get this? I will show you the primary source for every single thing that I say, because unlike conservative media, I've actually researched it and I've documented everything. So, welcome. We're very sorry, but welcome.
And fight for the most expansive vision of reproductive justice, prioritizing our ability to control our bodies and our lives. The recent waves of attacks on bodily autonomy can be seen as part of the long backlash to the gains made by the women's and gay liberation movements. So our big task is to learn from these earlier radical movements and to cohere our own version of a fighting movement for self-determination, healthcare as a right, social support for families, and racial and economic justice. And I'll just end with a couple of questions that we can get into in the discussion. I really want to know, like, what initiatives and actions can support these combined movements on the ground? And I really would love to hear what direct action campaigns or legislative initiatives are happening in your city that you see as useful in connecting all of these demands. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Here's Mary
Dr.
Bowman. Here's our queen for the day. You guys are going to love this. It's going to be great.
Hey, everybody. So if you didn't realize it yet, we're talking about the right. And I don't know how many of you were in the plenary last night, but I was really moved by how those brilliant people brought the sense of humility that they made their work and people should take their work and continue it and, you know, argue with it and broaden it. And so I'm offering what I have written as something that you can take and broaden. So on August 23rd, at the first debate of the US Republican presidential primary candidates, multimillionaire Vivek Ramaswamy called for the abolition of the Department of Education. His argument hinged on how education starts in the home, and he closed by saying the nuclear family is the greatest form of government known to mankind.
Boo. You hear that? You hear that? They are literally booing the nuclear family. By the way, this was the clip that Vivek Ramaswamy actually retweeted and responded to her, which was actually really funny when it happened. Yeah, we're going into the archive now. Mm-hmm. Listen to the boo again.
By saying the nuclear family is the greatest form of government known to mankind. His glorification of the nuclear family is representative of the value set held by most on the far right. The idea that heterosexual cisgender couples with children are the beating heart of a free and prosperous nation. Underneath that belief, we see its ideological roots deep in the gender binary.
Gender binary.
The gender binary is a white supremacist invention born from men in power in the division of labor and care work in primitive Western Europe. I know.
Okay, pause. The gender binary is a white supremacist invention driven by the division of care work. What does that mean? We're gonna pick apart what Mary Bowman says in this speech. What does that mean? Let's listen again, and you can put your guesses in the chat.
Binary. The gender binary is a white supremacist invention born from men in power in the division of labor and care work in primitive Western Europe.
The gender binary is a white supremacist invention driven by men in power based on the division of care work. What she just said is capitalism, because remember, they believe that white supremacy means capitalism. Capitalism created the gender binary of men and women. It put men in the workplace where they had access to all the power and all the money, women in the home where they did the unpaid reproductive labor. of having and raising the next generation of proletarian workers. That's what Mary Bowman just said. Does everyone understand that? It looks like we've got a lot of right answers in the chat. A lot of right answers. Let me see. Yep, this is the patriarchy. I've been down a lot of rabbit holes, so this is easier to see. Once you go down one rabbit hole, it is easier to go down more after that. Gender binary is capitalism. The patriarchy, it was made by capitalism. The division of labor, exactly. The division of labor is the patriarchy. The division of labor is the gender hierarchy. Men in the workforce, women in the home. Exactly. Well, the answer is always capitalism, but it's not enough to just say capitalism. You have to understand why it's capitalism. So the answer is almost always capitalism, but why? What aspect of capitalism? That's actually the important thing. Capitalists created the gender binary. Yup. Western Europe equals colonizers, the spread of capitalism. Exactly. The gender binary was created by European men who did paid labor while women remained in the home to have the kids, which is the social reproduction of capitalism. Okay, so we have that much. Mary Bowman believes capitalism created the gender binary, which means men and women, men in the workplace, women in the home. That is the patriarchy. That is the gendered hierarchy. That is the division of labor. We're going to move on now.
I know, Oliver, it sucks.
It sucks.
Male paternity became the absolute determinant of heritable wealth and property as class society was developing.
Property. The obsession with property, inheriting property, passing private property from parent to child.
Men in power sought exclusive right to their power, and women were excluded from participation in power structures. Domestic labor and care work were feminized and devalued. The gender binary was one aspect of the cultural devastation wrought by colonization.
Colonization also means capitalism.
Prior to colonization, indigenous cultures the world over had more than two genders.
Prior to capitalism, prior to the European colonizers, indigenous populations had all sorts of people that were outside the gender binary. This is where we get into two-spirit.
Colonization, indigenous cultures the world over had more than two genders, with trans and non-binary individuals often holding positions of leadership.
Trans and non-binary people were spiritual leaders in indigenous cultures. They actually believe this, guys. There is a map. We need to find this map again. There is a map that people like this created of indigenous cultures all over the world that had non-binary people as their spiritual leaders. I'm not making this up. They have the historical context for why they believe this is true for countries all over the world. I just saw a movie trailer for a movie called I Wish You All the Best about a non-binary person leaving their parents' house. Can we not? Can we not, though? Soul Quest, can we not? Why do you have to do that? Creating and passing generational wealth like an inheritance is an example of private property ownership. Yup, true. And it doesn't matter what we think. And this is really important for all the new people especially. It doesn't matter if you say it's bullshit. Of course it's bullshit. We all know it's bullshit. But they don't care what we believe. This is actually what they believe. Okay, continuing.
Expansive, non-binary gender expression and reproductive autonomy through contraception and abortion are ancient, sacred practices.
Reproductive autonomy through abortion is an ancient, sacred practice. I'm just going to pause for a second to allow the pro-lifers to have some feelings about what was just said. Abortion is an ancient, sacred practice. It's okay to work out your feelings. I'm going to let you do it. I know all the pro-lifers are screaming right now. You guys are about to throw something. You're like, if I say what I want to in the chat, Karlyn's going to yell at me. I'm giving you a pass, pro-lifers, to work out your feelings about this in the chat. This is the only one you're ever going to get. You can damn her to hell if you want to. You just to work it out of your system, because I know the pro-lifers aren't going to be able to pay attention to the entire rest of the presentation unless they work through their feelings in the chat right now. So let's just listen again. Listen.
Expansive, non-binary gender expression and reproductive autonomy through contraception and abortion are ancient, sacred practices.
Ancient, sacred practices.
And their repression has long been a tool of white supremacy.
If you repress people from the ancient, sacred practice of having an abortion, you are engaging in white supremacy. Everyone good? Everyone feeling good? Everyone tracking? All right, let's continue.
The Marxist feminist theory of social reproduction is also key to understanding the utility of the gender binary.
Social reproduction. Social reproduction is the idea that social systems will reproduce themselves until they are disrupted. The reason the left wants to abolish the nuclear family is because they believe the nuclear family is the social reproduction mechanism of capitalism.
To racist class society. As socialists, we know that all wealth is the product.
Actually, listen to that again, because she literally says that social reproduction reproduces, I think, racist class society.
Been a tool of white supremacy. The Marxist feminist theory of social reproduction is also key to understanding the utility of the gender binary to racist class society. As socialists, we know that all wealth is the product of workers' waged labor. Social reproduction theory further identifies capitalism's dependence on unwaged domestic labor, usually.
Social reproduction theory identifies capitalism's dependence on unpaid reproductive labor. No, that's not what they're saying. They're not saying it's on white people. Remember, whiteness means capitalism. This is not about skin color. It has nothing to do with it. They believe black people can be white too. This is about the system that upholds racism, systemic racism, which means capitalism. She hasn't mentioned skin color. She's talking about the system. Let's listen to this again.
Wealth is the product of workers' waged labor. Social reproduction theory further identifies capitalism's dependence on unwaged domestic labor.
Social reproduction theory identifies capitalism's dependence on unpaid reproductive labor. Yes, whiteness means whiteness means systemic racism. It doesn't mean skin color. The systemic racism means the system that upholds racism. That means capitalism. So whiteness means capitalism. But let's go back to this. What they believe is that capitalism cannot be reproduced without the social reproduction of it within the nuclear family. Okay? So when Mary says, we're going to listen to it one more time.
We know that all wealth is the product of workers' waged labor. Social reproduction theory further identifies capitalism's dependence on unwaged domestic labor.
When Mary says capitalism is dependent on unpaid domestic labor, what she means is mothers having children and raising them in a nuclear family with bourgeois capitalist values. That's what that means. That is how they believe capitalism is reproduced, is people have kids, they raise the kids to agree with the cultural aspects of capitalism, because capitalism is not just an economic model, it is also a cultural model, and they raise their kids to have capitalist values. And all of this mothering, all of this parenting, it's unpaid labor. No one's getting paid to be a parent. That's why they say it's devalued labor or unpaid labor, but it is that labor that is necessary to reproduce the capitalist system. Does everyone understand so far? We're going through a lot right now because Mary Bowman is such a treasure for us in this presentation. But I want to just do a quick pause to see who has questions. And I'm looking at the chat, and you're allowed to ask questions. Please don't work out your feelings on me. I'm just explaining what all this means. Welcome, EM. Don't get too overwhelmed. It is a lot right now, but that's okay. This is at the Socialism 2023 conference. This is a reproductive justice presentation. Capitalism to the left means private property ownership. Capitalism on the left has a very specific definition. It means private property ownership, your ability to own a home, land, apartment rental, intellectual property, private business, and parental rights. You can call it demonic if you want, but it's not productive to do here because it doesn't matter if you think it's demonic, to be honest. That you thinking it's demonic is not going to stop the left from doing what they're doing. Yeah, I knew this would be very triggering for you guys. This is why I wanted to give you all this gift of seeing this presentation. I knew it would trigger you, and it has. And we're just getting started. Look how much presentation we have left to watch. You have the impulse to stop learning and play a video game. Don't do it. Lean into it. This is like, bro, you're running the marathon right now. You can't quit the marathon. I have been shadow banned for literally years, and conservatives refuse to cover my content, and so that's probably why. But hey, welcome. Welcome. I recently broke the shadow ban on my channel, so it's actually serving my content to new people for once. Hey guys, if you want to help keep my content out there, make sure you have mounted the like button. Make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Make sure you're sharing stuff out, because I don't know, this shadow, I was shadow banned on YouTube for literally years. I couldn't get my content in front of any new people at all. And then for some reason, several weeks ago, it broke. And now new people are finding my content for the first time in like 4 effing ever. And so help me stay out of the shadow ban. Please mount the like button for me if you appreciate this. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Click on the videos when they're recommended. That would be really great. Did socialists ever mention the gender pay gap, or do they believe it? Oh, socialists absolutely believe the gender pay gap exists, but they don't talk about it that much, honestly. That's a good question. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. See, this is why we watch the entire socialism conference. Listen, there's going to be a lot of boring stuff. Don't get it twisted. But there is at least one golden nugget and as many as several golden nuggets every single time we do this. So, yes, I absolutely think we're going to see more stuff like this. Yup, I do. This is why we do this. We see this stuff all the time. Hey, Garrett, thank you. Buddhism has always had a dim view of abortion. Of course, it is a Indo-European ideology, and so pro-baby counts as white supremacist. Well, indeed it does. Indeed it does. Hey, thanks for the super chat, Garrett. I really do appreciate it. Let me add that to our total here. There we go. Do they have a position on? They don't talk about. They believe it should be a choice. They don't. I've never heard them talk about forced abortions. All right, let's keep going.
Usually performed by marginalized genders and femmes. Without social reproductive labor, meals, laundry, housework, childcare, emotional labor, and the physical reproduction of humans with our bodies, workplaces could not function and capitalism would fail.
Without the physical production of humans from our bodies, workplaces couldn't function because the worker supply wouldn't be replaced and capitalism would fail. That is why they're talking about the abolition of the nuclear family, because they want to disrupt the production of oppressed workers under capitalism.
When Ramaswamy hails the nuclear family as the greatest form of governance, he is saying that the oppressive binary gender roles necessary to maintain the nuclear family are where oppressive government policies begin. Binary gender contributes to the creation and maintenance of a lower class of marginalized genders.
Binary gender contributes to the creation and maintenance of a lower class of genders. What that means is anytime you have categories, you have a hierarchy. The binary are gender categories. They believe that the categories of men and women were created by capitalism. Those categories created the hierarchy in which men had more access to resources than women. That is the oppressive patriarchy, okay? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. No debunk you give is going to change. Guys, please stop debunking. Like, let's focus. I know you all want to debunk this. I know it's in your bones to debunk this, but there is no debunk that you can put in the chat that is ever going to change what they believe.
Cis and trans women, other trans people, non-binary and gender non-conforming folks who can then be more easily dehumanized and exploited. This is our starting point. The gender binary and its oppressive function. Colluding with white supremacy, colonization, and capitalism, we find the gender binary and ideology behind attacks on abortion, the criminalization of pregnancy outcomes, the mass incarceration of Black and brown people, the separation of families at the border, the criminalization of trans existence. Anything outside its narrow stricture is threatening to it and thus will be a target of the right. The right uses fear as a political tool to build support for their policies and to encourage the consumption of their media. The fear of fetal personhood, the fear of Black fetal genocide, the fear of women abandoning the nuclear family, the fear of a queer culture that rejects the nuclear family.
Again, you guys are making this up that this is about the birth rate. The only people who think this is about the birth rate are people who are coming from the right. No one is saying to crash the birth rate. She hasn't said that. These people have kids. Socialists have kids. They are not aborting all their kids. I understand why you think this, because again, this is another conservative bullshit narrative that confuses people. The birth rate thing is the WEF and Bill Gates. That's not related to this. It's separate groups. So they don't talk about the numbers. They don't talk about having less. They don't talk about that as part of their strategy. The reason they want abortion is to liberate women from the oppressive roles of doing the unpaid labor to raise the next generation of proletarian workers, thus socially reproducing capitalism within the nuclear marriage. That is why they want abortion. It is to liberate women from the gender binary that oppresses them into the role of doing reproductive labor for free. It is a larger percentage than you would ever dare dream.
Family. The fear of queer and trans adults indoctrinating children. The fear of trans women sexually assaulting cisgender women in public bathrooms. Some of these fears are wholly and
well, kind of. I mean, what they're saying is that if you have kids, you have to raise them outside of the capitalist system without capitalist values. So they're not opposed to having kids, but you're kind of like, you're saying it in a little bit of a trolly way, but you're actually kind of like, you're correct about what you're saying. They're saying if you are going to have kids, you raise them outside of the capitalist system, so you are not socially reproducing capitalism with your kids. Yeah, they're very pro polyamory. Polyamory is one of the ways they queer the family.
Irrefutably unfounded. Trans women as a group do not assault cis women in bathrooms and locker rooms. Children are not being indoctrinated by queers in their classrooms and libraries. And fetal personhood is an unscientific idea which undergirds arguments of Black genocide by abortion. But some of their fears may be legitimate, because destroying the nuclear family through sexual liberation and queer relationship anarchy sounds pretty great.
Destroying the nuclear family through sexual liberation and queer relationship anarchy sounds pretty great. That's what they them just said. Let's listen again.
By abortion. But some of their fears may be legitimate, because destroying the nuclear family through sexual liberation and queer relationship anarchy sounds pretty great.
Destroying the nuclear family through sexual liberation and queer relationship anarchy sounds pretty great. When they are saying queer relationship anarchy, they mean polyamory. It is not true that everyone who is in a polyamorous relationship is a radical revolutionary socialist. I know people who do polyamory that are not socialist at all. Some people just do that. But it is true that queer Marxists, and Mary is a queer Marxist, are extremely likely to participate in polyamorous relationships because they believe polyamory is the best way to queer the nuclear family and raise kids in an environment outside of capitalism. Because in a polyamorous relationship, you are rebelling against the propertied relationship of marriage. Remember, these people don't support marriage. These people don't support gay marriage. These people never wanted gay marriage to be legalized. These are anti-assimilationists. Queer Marxists are anti-assimilationists. Okay? Hope that makes sense. Hey, thank you, 007, for the super chat. I hate these people. The indoctrination camps, brainwashed my 22-year-old kid. I'm really sorry about that, but, maybe they'll get unindoctrinated someday. I appreciate the support, though. Thank you. Let's listen again one more time before I'll also let it play this time.
But some of their fears may be legitimate, because destroying the nuclear family through sexual liberation and queer relationship anarchy sounds pretty great.
Yep, it is.
Abortion has a special place in the movement against the right, as Clinic Defense has been in an active confrontation with anti-abortion activists on a weekly basis for many years in many places. Even though anti-abortion activists represent a minority, their money and Christo-fascist networks have built a highly successful movement, as Anne was saying. The right had been chipping away at abortion access for years before Roe was overturned. Now, in a post-Roe era, 15 states have banned abortion completely, while 7 other states have partial bans. The right's attack on abortion is an attempt to criminalize abortion and all who participate in it, providers and patients. The attacks on trans existence also seek to criminalize individuals involved in the support and survival of trans people. Through criminalization, the right utilizes the police and the state to enforce their patriarchal, white supremacist family values.
The right uses the police and the state to enforce their white supremacist family values. Remember, the far left hates the police. The far left believes the police are the enforcers of private property. They also believe the state is a capitalist state based on a capitalist constitution, and thus the job of the state is also to enforce capitalism on the population.
The criminalization of pregnancy and its outcomes extends beyond abortion, adversely impacting Black folks, Indigenous folks.
Hang on. We don't trade in bullshit here. We do not use polls to inform what we believe in the world. Polls are almost universally completely unhinged from reality, and they are absolutely not measuring this group at all. So please refrain. I understand you mean well, but there is no way to estimate what percentage of the population these people are, because no one's actually talking to these people, and any statistic you give is not going to apply to them at all. Just suffice it to say, there are a metric fuck ton of these people, way more than you understand. And if you focus on the number, you're not going to focus on the impact, and you're not going to focus on learning. So please pay attention and just put down the polls that are not relevant to the situation. Again, I understand you mean well. I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but
folks, people of color, and the working class. Anti-abortion laws recognizing fetal personhood are being used to prosecute pregnant or postpartum patients with a history of substance use. In the past few years, hundreds of people suspected of using drugs while pregnant have been prosecuted, with many serving jail time and being denied contact with their children even after they deliver healthy babies. In Alabama, Mississippi, Oklahoma, and South Carolina, law enforcement have expanded their use of child abuse and
So capitalism is defined as private property ownership. Everything that upholds private property ownership is the enemy to them because their only goal is to abolish capitalism.
neglect laws to police the conduct of pregnant people under this concept of fetal personhood. The right has embraced the project of fetal personhood with the aim of giving embryos and fetuses the same rights and legal protections as a fully formed living person. The idea of fetal personhood is a religious one, not a scientific one. Arguments about fetal personhood are used to justify abortion bans at conception and minimize the agency and humanity of pregnant people. Additionally, fetal personhood valorizes male fertilization as the defining moment of human creation, thus marginalizing gestation, birth, and parenting.
Yo, I forgot about that. I haven't watched this presentation in so long. I forgot about that. They're pissed off because conservatives define personhood based on the male fertilizing the woman, because that's the patriarchy. It's the oppressive gender hierarchy. I don't know who that is. Ziran J. Zhao is a leftist novelist whose books feature a throuple between a girl and two boys and glorify socialism. Hey, there's a reason for that, Gareth. Thanks for the super chat and the tip, though. We should maybe look into those at some point. That's funny. Of course they're teaching them about polyamory. Of course. Why not? Do not ever say this. Tommy, fuck you. Just so you guys know, this is what we call Fed posting. We don't do this shit here. You never imply violence. You never imply anything like this. Disavow universally. Do not do this shit in my chat. You assholes can get my channel banned when you do this shit. Keep it to your fucking self. You're getting put in a timeout. Nothing pisses me off more than when people Fed post in my chat implying any sort of violence or offing these people at all. And I don't care if you're being funny and I don't care if you're making a cute joke. This is my fucking YouTube channel and you're not going to fuck with it.
In a troubling example, Jose Oliva, former Florida House Speaker and current senior advisor to Ron DeSantis,
Boo.
has described pregnant people as host bodies when arguing in favor of the personhood of fetuses.
Hey, thank you.
The criminalization of abortion and trans existence is a mass incarceration event.
Wait. Again?
And arguing in favor of the personhood of fetuses. The criminalization of abortion and trans existence is a mass incarceration event.
The criminalization of abortion and trans existence is a mass incarceration event. So they're arguing the state wants to put the undesirables in prison, essentially.
And mass incarceration is a reproductive justice issue.
Yo.
The United States has one of the most incarcerated populations in the world. Jails and prisons, by definition, restrict bodily autonomy and one's ability to make decisions regarding their life and future, especially reproductive and parenting decisions. Mass incarceration is another tool of white supremacy and capitalism, which is impacted by the gender binary.
Mass incarceration is another tool of white supremacy and capitalism impacted by the gender binary. Again, they believe that the prison industrial complex upholds capitalism. They are the managers of capitalism and private property, and that is why they're doing what they're doing.
As it disrupts caregiving structures, and the people who are criminalized are held responsible for the destruction incarceration inflicts on their families.
Man.
Thus far, in 2023, 79 anti-trans bills have passed in the U.S. of the 562 which have been introduced. In May, the Republican governor of Nebraska signed a law that bans abortion after 12 weeks of pregnancy and restricts gender-affirming care for people under 19. Dobbs versus Jackson, the case that overturned Roe, has now been used.
I have listened to more of this content than literally anyone on the planet. How do you think I fucking feel? Do you guys want to know why to all the new people want to know why I yell sometimes and I get belligerent and I have my moments too? Just remember that I have listened to more of this content than most of you put together. Just remember what I have put myself through to serve you guys and to show you this. Just remember the amount of pain and heartache and depression and blackpilling I have had to endure. And not only did I listen to all of this, I analyzed it and I broke it down. And I've listened to many of these presentations more than once. I'm just saying, the next time I yell at you, just remember that there is a history here that you might need to consider. Hey, two ladies, it's good to see you. Much love and respect, Karlyn, and all of our long-term family here. Hang in there to all of our newest members. Some is hard to learn and understand, but vital to actually understand what is happening. Do the work. Do the work. Great to see you two ladies. Appreciate the super chat as always.
Used as justification by judges in 2 states to uphold gender-affirming care bans. The right argues that gender-affirming care harms young people, while medical experts, professional organizations, and the research all agree that honoring someone's preferred name and pronouns and providing access to gender-affirming hormones improve mental health outcomes for both young people and adults. Gender-affirming hormone therapy has an extremely low regret rate, ranging from 0.1% to 1%, depending on the study. Other surgeries, like knee replacement and gastric lap band, have regret rates in the double digits, yet the right is not second-guessing the decision-making of those patients. The criminalization of this healthcare targets not just the potential patient, but also the providers. As gender-affirming care has become more widely recognized and accessible, care providers have started facing more legal issues, increased bigotry and slander, as well as violence, harassment, and threats. If these problems sound familiar, that's because abortion providers have faced all this and worse since 1973. Threatening and perpetuating violence against providers discourages patients from accessing care and discourages providers from offering targeted services. To date, anti-abortion domestic...
Hang on, we got a super chat from Tolkien Fan. Thank you, Tolkien Fan. Got a guy at work that complains about the mean words Trump says, and I told him when the U.S. falls to socialism and communism, he will beg for Trump back. I don't know, man. Trump's kind of a dick lately. Trump and conservative influencers going after Thomas Massie has led me to believe that I might actually prefer the socialist to Trump, because Trump is just being a dick. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's probably true. Yeah, you're probably right, but still. Hey, look at this. 2 ladies gifting 10 channel memberships. Guys, as a reminder, channel memberships get to come to our supporter-exclusive spy stream later that we're doing. Let me see. Who got a channel membership? I need to look close because I'm not wearing my glasses. Let me see. Oh, no, I can't see. Let's see. Martin got one. Nuke got one. Grace in the Forest got one. Faith and Hope got one. Pie War. This was recorded in September 2023. Gray Talon got one. Chris got one. RM got one. Johnny got one. Scrimshaw got one. Shelly B got one. Congratulations to everyone who got a channel membership. As a reminder, guys, we do have a supporter-exclusive spy stream coming up at 9:30 tonight. Everyone with a YouTube channel membership will be able to find the link to that spy stream in the community post section where I've already posted it, so it should already be there. But welcome to all the new channel members. Thank you, 2 ladies. I really do appreciate that. That's very nice.
Terrorism has killed 11 people, injured 12, and kidnapped 2. March 10th was federally recognized as National Abortion Provider Appreciation Day, commemorating the day that Dr. Gunn was assassinated in 1993. Since his murder, 3 other abortion doctors have been assassinated by right-wing extremists in the United States. Religious protesters outside of abortion clinics are exceedingly commonplace, as they attempt to shame and deter patients from accessing services. Crisis pregnancy centers are fake clinics run by right-wing anti-abortion organizations, which exist to trick and coerce pregnant people away.
Hang on, let's go back to crisis pregnancy centers are fake in a moment here. Any thoughts as to why Mary is the one who seems to say the quiet part out loud more than the others? Oh, you're just new. Oh, you're new. Honey, you're new. You're new. There are many, 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 many socialist activists who say the quiet part out loud. It's not that Mary is saying the quiet part out loud more than others. It's just that Mary is saying the quiet part out loud this time. That's not to say it won't be someone else in the next presentation or someone else in the next presentation after that. There are many of these people who say the quiet part out loud. And you're going to see that this weekend. If you come to the socialism stream this weekend, you're going to see person after person after person. Because remember, this is their big event. The Socialism Conference is their big event of the year. They want to get up and they want to show off in front of that crowd. And even though they're on camera, and even though many of them do know who I am and they know I'm going to be watching them, they don't try to think about it because they're putting on a show for their comrades. They're really showing off. And so a lot of them are going to say the quiet part out loud this weekend because they're showing off. And it's going to be great. And that is why we are going to forgo the 4th of July Day parade. That's why we're not going to have a barbecue. And we're going to sit on our asses and watch socialism all weekend. Hey, no mayo. Thank you, Suzanne. I think when people get overtly chatty in here, it's a form of denial, a way to not hear the truth. Yeah, I think that too. And I understand that. It's a little bit of a cope. We have to let people kind of work through their feelings because understanding this is a lot. And so I get that. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it.
Services. Crisis pregnancy centers are fake clinics run by right-wing anti-abortion organizations which exist to trick and coerce pregnant people away from abortion. Recently, fake gender clinics have been opened to use the same tactics to prey on vulnerable folks seeking gender affirmation. In Illinois last year, gender development program workers at Lurie Children's Hospital were slandered by the far-right Republican gubernatorial candidate, Darren Bailey. When a Boston Children's Hospital was similarly threatened by trolls on TikTok, they received a number of threats, including a fake bomb threat which sent the hospital into lockdown. While post-Roe, we have seen a myriad of mutual aid efforts to support individuals seeking abortions, there are far fewer community projects focused on...
Yeah, for people who weren't around last year, the Socialism Conference. So I went undercover at the Socialism Conference in 2023, which is the same year this presentation was done. And I secretly recorded them. And I released all the recordings on the internet. And they weren't too happy about that. So last year at the conference, they actually did what we started calling the Karlyn disclaimer, which was reminding people, you might be recorded, idiots. So make sure you understand that you might be recorded. And so we started calling that the Karlyn disclaimer because they started doing it in like every presentation at the Socialism Conference. You're welcome. Average person, hey, Dr. K, I calculated you watched about 4,680 hours of socialism, assuming 3 hours a day, 6 days a week for 5 years. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right, actually. That sounds about right. Holy shit. Yeah. 4,600 hours of socialism. Hey, thank you, Gareth. Zirin, I don't know how to say that name. Most famous books are Iron Widow and Heavenly Tyrant, in case you are interested. Also, fetal personhood is not religious. Well, I know that and you know that, but they don't know that, Gareth. Thank you, though, for the super chat. I appreciate it.
Defending access to care for trans people. There are small local efforts like the Hormone Access Project out of Western Massachusetts or the Milwaukee Queer and Trans Depot Shot Clinic in Wisconsin. But these organizations represent the trans community supporting itself through peer service provision, not individuals outside the community acting in solidarity.
Also, keep in mind that when I'm clipping presentations, I have to watch them off stream where you guys don't know I'm watching them. So when I'm making clips of presentations, I have to watch the whole presentation again and again and again. So it might actually be well over 5,000 hours because there's a lot of socialism that I watch that is not on the internet.
Millions of dollars raised for abortion funds last summer. Gorgeous defenses of drag story hours across the country have demonstrated that the community to protect trans care seekers exists and can be mobilized. The movement for trans liberation can learn so much from how abortion activists have fought against the right for the last 50 years. We can create ongoing solidarity funds to pay for medications, appointments, and procedures, as well.
Solidarity funds are the same thing as we heard about with abortion funds or mutual aid funds earlier.
Create ongoing solidarity funds to pay for medications, appointments, and procedures, as well as travel to states and countries where care is more accessible. We can form clinic defense leagues that protect the entrances to gender-affirming care hubs, like the children's hospitals, which have been targeted by bigots. The right recognizes that our movements have common cause. I'm going to say that again. The right recognizes that our movements have common cause.
No, they don't actually,
but
but okay.
have yet to unify our fight against a common enemy. Sister Song defines reproductive justice.
Hey, thank you, Sith, over on Rumble. Here's some love from Rumble. Keep up the good work, Dr. B. I do appreciate that. Thank you.
As, quote, the human right to maintain personal bodily autonomy, have children, not have children, and parent the children we have in safe and sustainable communities. Bodily autonomy includes gender self-determination, as well as our ability to access the care necessary to keep ourselves safe and well. We must bring together our movements to strengthen our ability to fight the right. Abortion and gender-affirming care are healthcare resources that everyone should have access to. As Anne was saying, we must demand increased access by making healthcare free for all and integrating abortion care and gender-affirming care into primary care facilities.
Oh,
we need more.
This is something I want to point out for new people. This is a little bit more subtle in this presentation, but did you notice how Mary has kept saying that we need to integrate abortion care and gender-affirming healthcare, and she says it in the same sentence? This is something I saw when I was undercover at the Reproductive Justice Conference, is almost every single time they talked about abortion, they were also talking about gender-affirming care for kids. That's because, to the left, those issues are linked because both of those issues are about bodily autonomy. And so oftentimes, and this is important because the state of Ohio almost fucked this up colossally. I believe it was Ohio. In the state of Ohio, they passed some sort of bill around, they thought it was about abortion, but the left had written the bill so that not only was the bill about abortion, it was also about protecting gender-affirming care for kids. But they worded it really tricky in a way that if you didn't know that's what they were doing, like, I'm pretty sure it was Ohio, right? They passed some sort of constitutional amendment via a vote where it was about protecting abortion, but they wrote it in a way that it also applied to trans surgery for kids. And they didn't realize it until after the vote, but that's what these people do. And that's why you need to be very, very aware that anytime these people are talking about abortion, they are also talking about transing kids because they view the issue as one and the same. Does that make sense to everyone? You have to be really careful about the wording that they're using on those issues because they always try to word it in a way where it applies to both things. So if you're voting on something, if you're like an average pro-choice woman and you're just saying, I just want to protect a woman's right to choose, well, guess what? You are also voting on whether or not you want to legally allow trans kids because the issues are always linked.
Must demand increased access by making healthcare free for all and integrating abortion care and gender-affirming care into primary care facilities. We need more providers and better training for providers so that all healthcare professional students receive training in full-scope reproductive and gender-affirming care. We must fight for gender-affirming care as a right for young people and adults, and fight against draconian laws that ban drag and deviant gender expression. We must fight for coverage of gender-affirming hormones and surgeries by Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurers. We must enable simpler, easier processes to change legal names and gender markers on all documents, such as security cards, birth certificates, and state-issued IDs. We need to fight against anti-trans bigotry in housing and employment discrimination. We must demand social services, including free childcare, high-quality free public education, and free healthy food programs to support working families with the resources necessary to nurture young children. We must decarcerate and release people from jails and prisons to neighborhoods with support services, free mental health care clinics, free housing, and non-punitive drug treatment programs. We must end abortion clinics' relationships with police and state and create community-based safety measures to defend our clinics. We must defund, disarm, and dismantle the police, abolishing that institution and the prison industrial complex.
So I'm kind of letting Mary talk here, but Mary just basically talked about a lot of interrelated issues on the left. And I just want to do a quick pause. Are people starting to pick up on the language? Because Mary just binged around to like 4 different issues on the left that are all interrelated. And again, they're interrelated because it always eventually comes back to capitalism. But I want to see if the new people are starting to pick up on the language that you just heard. Because I understand what she's saying very clearly because I've been listening to way too much of this stuff for years. We're going to go back and listen to it again. But I just want her to go through. Here are all of the intersecting issues. When they say intersectionality, what they mean is all of the ways in which you are oppressed by capitalism. Because every single issue that she just listed, it all goes back to being oppressed by capitalism. Listen again. Let me know if you have questions.
Professional students receive training in full scope reproductive and gender affirming care. We must fight for gender affirming care as a right for young people and adults, and fight against draconian laws that ban drag and deviant gender expression. We must fight for coverage of gender affirming hormones and surgeries by Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurers. We must enable simpler, easier processes to change legal names and gender markers on all documents, such as security cards, birth certificates, and state-issued IDs. We need to fight against anti-trans bigotry in housing and employment discrimination. We must demand social services, including free childcare, high-quality free public education, and free healthy food programs to support working families with the resources necessary to nurture young children. We must decarcerate and release people from jails and prisons to neighborhoods with support services, free mental health care clinics, free housing, and non-punitive drug treatment programs. We must end abortion clinics' relationships with police and state and create community-based safety measures to defend our clinics. We must defund, disarm, and dismantle the police, abolishing that institution and the prison industrial.
Hang on. Did she say working families? Is there not a contradiction here? Well, no, because they believe that working families are oppressed by capitalism and they just don't know it yet. So it's not that they're anti-family. They're not anti-people in the family, right? What they believe is that working families who are struggling financially should naturally be socialist because they are oppressed by capitalism and capitalism is never going to allow them to get ahead in the world. Hope that makes sense.
Complex. We must keep fighting for medication, abortion, and contraception to be.
No. Why don't we say this? Lucy, I think you're new here. Welcome if you're new. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just really want to make sure people understand why we don't say this. We never say these people are mentally ill. Why don't we, chat, why don't we say these people are mentally ill? I know it's a common talking point. I understand why you said it. I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but this is actually really important. Pop quiz for the chat. Why don't we ever say that socialists are mentally ill? Because they're strategic and they're winning. Any other reasons? I know everyone wants to say they're mentally ill. Mentally ill people couldn't win like they are. We don't say they're mentally ill because these people have different values than us. Conservatives say this in order to dismiss them. That's a really important point. Every single time you guys say these people are mentally ill, you are dismissing the impact that they have, and you're allowing them to operate completely unopposed. They're kicking our asses right now. They're not mentally ill. They have completely different values. They have completely different ways they see the world. They're well organized and highly proactive in their activism. This is their identity. Mentally ill people are usually not this dedicated, organized, or strategic. They're winning. When you say someone is mentally ill, you dismiss them. You don't take them seriously as a threat. They're actually very smart and very well organized. It is a threat, and we want to make sure we understand perpetually that this is a threat. The strategy is coherent if you learn their language. That's exactly right. You start understanding it if you learn their language. No. No. I've now told you twice. You're not going to say this again. If you say this again, I'm going to put you in a timeout. We are taking the time to explain to you very clearly why we don't do this. And you are on my channel and you're going to respect my rules and you're going to respect my wishes. And if you don't like it, you don't have to be here. You got a lot of people explaining to you in the chat, Lucy, why we don't do that. This is not just me being mean. There is a reason for this. Hey, thanks, Gareth, again, for all the super chats. How can they support working families if they're against the family? Because they're not opposed to the people in the family. They're not opposed to, they want the people in the family to, okay, here's what it is. And Gareth, you might have to watch some of our Abolish the Family content. That might be a good idea for you to go back and watch the past couple Socialism Saturdays. They believe the lives of the people within the family will be fundamentally better if they are removed from the capitalist system and the capitalist confines of the family. So they believe everyone's life is going to be better. They believe people are going to have access to more resources. They believe that people are not going to be struggling if they remove the privatized family unit. That does not mean they're getting rid of the people. That does not mean they're saying that parents can't love their kids. It doesn't mean that at all. But they honestly believe that their solutions are better for working families because the reason they are working families is because they are oppressed under capitalism, and their job, their mission is to wake people up to the class consciousness, the critical consciousness that is necessary for them to realize we live in a class system and we are the proletarian or the oppressed. So they do believe they are the best option for working families because they believe everyone's life will be better if the family unit as a privatized unit of property is eliminated. And I know that might be a little complicated, but that is what the answer is. They are for a different type of family structure that is outside of the capitalist model. That is absolutely correct. But it's a fair question, and I understand why it's confusing to people.
Be made available without a prescription, and for all healthcare professionals to be able to provide abortion care within their scope of practice. We need to stand against any attempts to ban abortion, including later abortion, and return to the radical slogan, free abortion on demand without apology.
Cheers! Yay!
We will not capitulate to spineless Democrats who allow abortion restrictions and bans as a compromise with the right.
I'm sorry, is Mary telling us how much socialists hate the Democrats? I feel like this is exactly what we watched in that presentation yesterday. Again, Mary, tell us how much you hate the Democrats, please.
We will not capitulate to spineless Democrats who allow abortion restrictions and bans as a compromise with the right. The same spineless Democrats who tout their rainbow allyship while trans people are murdered. We will defend abortion and gender-affirming care clinics fiercely and beat back.
By the way, what does that mean? Democrats will tout their rainbow allyship while trans people are murdered. What that means is these people believe that Democrats only wave the pride flag as a political narrative that they're not actually serious about because trans people are literally being murdered and Democrats won't do anything about that. So yeah, it's an issue of pink washing. That's what they believe. So all of this Pride Month stuff, and I know we didn't really have Pride Month in June. It was very sad. Pride Month got canceled because of other things. But people like Mary are not in favor of pride. They're not in favor of corporate pride. They're not in favor of the pride stuff in Target and all that because they believe that's a form of rainbow capitalism where basically gay people are being exploited for capitalist purposes. And they believe the Democrats are doing rainbow capitalism or pinkwashing, which is exploiting marginalized people for political means.
The same spineless Democrats who tout their rainbow allyship while trans people are murdered. We will defend abortion and gender-affirming care clinics fiercely and beat back the bigots at their doors. We will support the right of anyone to have an abortion.
Hey, Lucy, like I said, I thought you were new, and that's okay. And I appreciate you learning, and I appreciate you taking the feedback. Thank you. It's really not meant to put you on the spot, and it's really not meant to make you feel bad. But again, when new people come onto the channel, we need to cure them of some bad habits immediately, and it's done with love, and we want you to learn, and we want to remove these misconceptions, and it's not your fault that you've learned this stuff because it's come from your influencers. So, no harm, no foul, Lucy. We're glad that you're here.
And at any time for any reason. The right is wealthy, well-organized, and winning many legislative battles. They have established a playbook of repeat strategies which undermine bodily autonomy and police gender expression. They believe their fight has been divinely appointed to them by God. In order to beat them, we must come together to build a mass movement and take power. Our movements have more in common than just our enemies. The tenets of what we are fighting for are interconnected. Transgender liberation is reproductive justice. Manifesting reproductive justice is impossible without achieving trans liberation.
Reproductive justice and trans liberation are linked. And by the way, when they say trans liberation, they mean, of course, the annihilation of capitalism. Yeah, they do actually think the right is organized. And this is one of the funniest things, because just like the right doesn't understand the left because the right doesn't listen to the left at all, the left also doesn't understand the right because the left doesn't listen to the right at all. And they actually do believe they're losing to the right. And they have to, I've told people this story, but so Sophie Lewis is our favorite abolish the family socialist. We watch Sophie all the time on this channel. She has red hair. You will see her eventually if you haven't seen her already. And I once got into a DM conversation with Sophie on Instagram where I said to her, I was like, Sophie, you understand you guys are winning, right? And when I told Sophie that they were winning, she was so pissed off. Like, she started yelling at me over Instagram. She's like, what are you talking about? We are obviously not winning for reasons X, Y, B, and Z. And I was like, Sophie, I promise you, you're actually winning. And I'm sorry that this is new information to you, but I promise you, you are winning and it's not even close. And Sophie got so pissed off at me. And then I couldn't stay to argue with her because I had to go do a radio interview or something. And so I was like, okay, Sophie, I'm sorry I pissed you off. I'll be back later. We can keep fighting if you want. Yes. The redhead that wants to get rid of private kitchens. Exactly. Yeah, I got into a fight with her on Instagram about this one time. It was so great. Sophie was so pissed off at me for saying she was winning. And that's because they have to believe that they're losing because they are in the perpetual revolution. Hope that makes sense. Why are they? Well, they have to, Lucy, they have to wear clothes. So essentially, guys, socialists and communists are allowed to participate in capitalism because they live in a capitalist society. And as long as they are working to overthrow the system, they're allowed to participate in capitalism. They are allowed to buy clothes. They are allowed to buy cars. They're allowed to buy computers. They are allowed to have businesses. They're allowed to write books and sell books. They're allowed to do all of these things because they are, and clothes are also considered to be personal property. But they're allowed to participate in the capitalist system because they're fighting the capitalist system and they have to survive within the capitalist system to overthrow it. So that's essential. And it says this in the Communist Manifesto, by the way. Yes, people would be pissed off if they knew about this stuff. Can you guys help me share this content with more people? Because I can't get conservative media to share this stuff because they refuse to properly inform their audiences. So all we have are each other. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel, mount the like button, share my videos out with people, share my content on Substack out with people. I want people to be pissed off. I want people to be pissed off that this has been happening for decades and decades and decades, and no one knew about it, and it was happening in public, and literally all you had to do was look. And I want people to be pissed off that they are not being properly informed by their influencers, their commentators, and their pundits. So please share it. Get the information out there.
Ultimately, our collective freedom depends on liberation from every oppressive system and the creation of a new society built on human need, where abortion is everywhere and trans people are free.
Thanks again, Anne and Mary. That was truly inspiring. For the discussion portion, we're going to try and keep our comments to 3 minutes to hear from as many comrades as possible. And if you'd like to speak, raise your hand and I'll call 5 people up.
Okay, so now they're about to do what's called progressive stack. You're going to see a lot of this at the Socialism Conference this weekend. So essentially how socialism, here's my Twitter thread. Misa just put it in the chat. You guys can share out my thread on Twitter about Mary Bowman, because I have all this clipped up. I've had this for years. So what socialists do in their presentations is basically you'll have a panel of people like this, and each person gets up and they read a speech. And then what they do is they do progressive stack within the audience, which people might know of because like a couple years ago, the Democratic Socialists of America got caught having this crazy convention where they were arguing over which people were more oppressed. Well, that's because of progressive stack. And basically what they do is when it comes time to answer questions, anyone who has a question or wants to say something at the microphone, because you can get up and say whatever you want at the microphone. It doesn't even need to be related to the presentation. Anyone who wants to say something can raise their hand, and then the moderator comes around and they say, the comrade in the blue shirt or the comrade with the red hat, and they put them all in an order. And that order is supposed to be based on progressive stack, which means the most oppressed people are in line first. The most oppressed people are in line first, and the least oppressed people have to wait their turn. So they're basically turning the hierarchy on its head. And so then what'll happen is you're going to basically see several people in a row come up to the microphone, and they're going to say something, and there's going to be no response from the panel, because what they do is they let several people in a row talk, and then the panel responds to which ones they want to respond to.
The mic at a time, you can line up, and then when the first 5 are done, we'll go to the next 5. I have the comrade in the purple here, the comrade in the maroon right there, the comrade in the back with the black mask and glasses, and then comrade here with the black and white sweater.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. My name is Enid. I'm from the organization Left Voice, and I'm a founding organizer of the socialist feminist group Bread and Roses. And I think it's so important that we have this
Bread and Roses, holy shit. That's old school.
I think people aren't talking enough about that crisis. Of the, 500, 600 proposed anti-trans bills this year alone. And we're seeing an absolute attack not just on trans children, but on trans adults and the ability to be trans and exist as a trans person in a public space. And so we need to take this fight really seriously. And something what I liked about what the first speaker said is there seems to be this contradiction. Because on the one hand, every single poll is showing that these things are unpopular. But on the other hand, they keep advancing. And so I think to understand how to fight these back and seize power, as the second speaker said, we have to look at where that contradiction comes from. I think that contradiction comes from the fact that these attacks are coming from the top, which means they're coming from the state. These are attacks by the state on the oppressed.
The capitalist.
And I think when we look at that and we look back to the Marxist text and we look back to our socialist strategy, we can see that the state is doing what the state always does, what the state has done to people of color for generations and millennia, what the state does to people who can become pregnant for generations and millennia.
People who can become pregnant.
What the state does is the state exists to oppress us and restrict our rights to make us easier to exploit under capitalism. And that's what the state's role is.
The state's role is to make it easier to exploit us under capitalism. Every time this person says the state, they're talking about the capitalist state because they believe the United States is built on capitalism and that the Constitution is a capitalist document. So that's why they put it in that way.
And millennia, because what the state does is the state exists to oppress us and restrict our rights to make us easier to exploit under capitalism.
Bing.
And that's what the state's role is. So as we think about seizing power, I completely agree with what the second speaker said, is that we need to think about how we unite our struggles into a single fighting force and fight together, uniting all of these struggles against the state to smash it and take it for our own. And to do that, we must resist all attempts to co-opt us and weaken our movements by these spineless Democrats who won't defend us now, who won't defend us tomorrow, and
Spineless
will never defend us.
Democrats.
That party has never
Wow.
defended us. They have our blood on their hands.
The Democrats have never defended trans people. They have the blood of trans people on their hands. Again, it sounds to me an awful lot like they do not like the Democrats.
Smash it and take it for our own. And to do that, we must resist all attempts to co-opt us and weaken
I gotta
our
look up
movements by
Bread and
these
Roses. I
spineless
haven't looked up
Democrats
them in
who
a
won't
while.
defend us now, who won't defend us tomorrow, and will never defend us. That party has never defended us. They have our blood on their hands.
Oh, yeah?
Thank you.
Hang on. So do things get more juicy in the Q&A? Yes, 1,000%. The Q&A is almost always the best part of the presentation, because what happens is not only do you get to hear from the audience, and the audience is getting their big chance to say the crazy thing, but also the speakers are now no longer following a script. So this is a criticism that the left often gets from the right, is like every time socialists give a presentation, it looks like they're reading off a script, because they are. These are academics. They're reading off of a paper they wrote, right? But once we get to the Q&A, they no longer have the paper, so they're having to go off the top of their head. They say so many more of the quiet parts out loud in the Q&A, it's not even funny. Hey, thanks to ladies. This is for Beer Fun Fridays. Lots of love to Victor, too. Sorry, we forgot to mention him early. That's okay. Victor forgives you. He's working on his model car right now. He's pretty thrilled. Thank you, two ladies. Appreciate it.
Hi, thank you. My name's Julia. I'm from Pittsburgh. I'm part of an abortion activist group called Tri-State Abortion Action, supporting and expanding
Hey, thanks,
abortion
Gareth.
rights in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
Ohio.
Well. I mean, I would be lying if I said that watching all this stuff hasn't made me a little bit fascist. I'm not even joking. I believe that I believe that classical liberalism has led to this. I believe that if we continue down any sort of classically liberal path, these people are going to win and we're going to lose. I believe that classical liberalism only allows these people to be more successful. And so I'm not saying I'm a complete fascist, because, you know, in my heart of hearts, I'm an anarcho-capitalist. Like, for real, I am a libertarian. I'm very like, just leave me alone and don't take my stuff, and I have guns and don't come to my house because you're going to find out I have guns. Like, I'm very like anarcho-capitalist, but realistically, I am not if it means stopping these people, I am not opposed to fascism. And I think that the world is an imperfect place. And we don't always get what we want, and sometimes hard decisions have to be made. And if I have to choose between living in a communist utopia and becoming a literal fascist, then I will become a literal fascist every single day of the week. And it's not even close. So you'll come around to that idea. Many people in my community are more disaffected leftists and independents. And even like many people in my community, after watching socialism for a while, they're like, yeah, we're kind of fascist now. Like, the right isn't doing anything. Conservatives aren't doing anything. If we leave it up to classical liberals, they're going to win. So what are our options? Are we going to become a communist, or are we going to become a fascist? Choose. So, yeah.
In West Virginia. So if you are from any of those states and you want to talk, I would love to talk to you. We're very new. But I have a lot of questions about how we have these very important topics come up in our activism on the ground, and how we bring it into our movement and make sure that we are sharing these values and reflecting them in our work. But I also just really like, something I want to get down to here is a debate that we've been having that I am tasked to bring back to my organization. So I want to say this is an idea that's inspired by the plenary last night, that you are not a radical feminist if you are trans exclusionary.
Oh!
That term should not even exist, because you cannot be one and the other at the same time. They're in contradiction with each other. But that being said, there is a history that the speakers mentioned is really important, that both movements should learn from each other. And there is a really powerful history in the women's movement and feminist movement in this country that we should learn from, while also reflecting that it has a history of being exclusionary and needs to be. There are mistakes that were made in the past that led to failures in the movement that we need to not replicate. Okay, but I'm getting down to my exact question that I need answers on, which is, how do we talk about women in the abortion struggle and be inclusionary of trans rights?
I've seen a lot more of this come up lately. Protect the dolls is becoming a slogan that I've been hearing more and more and more on the queer Marxist left. Protect the dolls means protect trans women. They also say protect action figures. Action figures is trans men. Oftentimes, though, that actually refers to trans kids. So protect the dolls, trans girls, protect the action figures, trans boys. Just in case people are hearing that and they don't know what that means.
And I mean on our flyers and in our emails, when people still, a lot of working class people identify with the term women and the identity of women. And how can we
a lot of working class people identify with the identity of women. Working class people still believe in the gender binary. Working class people haven't learned yet that the socially constructed category of women was created by capitalism. Listen to this. So this actually goes to, I think, this actually goes to the question earlier of like, why are they talking about working families? And now you're seeing like they believe working families just don't have the awareness yet to understand that concepts like women are just socially constructed categories. So DJ, a lot of people who watch my content have actual notebooks just for my content. So yeah, you might want to get yourself a notebook.
Women and the identity of women.
Wait, listen to this again. This is funny.
And be inclusionary of trans rights. And I mean on our flyers and in our emails, when people still, a lot of working class people identify with the term women and the identity of women. And how can we articulate that we are being inclusive? How can we actively be inclusive while also still using that term?
Yeah, the proletariat must be guided.
What does that mean?
Yep.
Help me. Thank you.
You have 2 legal pads so far? That's awesome. Well done.
Hi, I'm Crystal. I'm a healthcare worker. I used to work at Howard Brown, and now I work in an abortion clinic. So I work in a lot of reproductive health. And I guess my question kind of comes from both of what you guys were talking about, but about how like a lot of the Democrats have like gone to compromising or, you know, doing something to like get a win, whatever
more
that
Democrat
quote unquote win would be. Those people are usually the people running the clinics or like in power at the clinics. We see Howard Brown Health here in Chicago is supposed to be like a queer haven clinic. And as a worker there, that was not the case. And like we were constantly fighting against clinicians, against like clinic directors about please use people's proper pronouns, like don't force people into these like, you know, to get these certain tests and everything like that. And that's a similar thing that we are facing at clinics. I think about Planned Parenthood. I think about my own clinic where it's usually the workers that are paid the less, the medical assistants, the patient educators, the health educators, people that are working in like the tech, not necessarily always the clinicians that are the most radical and are really trying to push, but then our livelihood goes on the line. We get in trouble, we get marked up, we get spoken down to, and then it's like, well, we're already struggling so hard, and so many unions, thank goodness, have been cropping up in this work.
Oh, so many unions have been cropping up in this work. As a reminder, all unions are socialist. Most unions are completely infiltrated by socialists basically they only exist for far left activism. You see unions popping up all the time in protest organizing. Now they're saying the unions are getting involved in like organization for reproductive justice and stuff like that. Isn't it funny that the unions are always mentioned as their chief primary organizing apparatus? I think one of the most productive things Donald Trump could do by far is banning all unions. Like, Donald Trump should write an executive order banning all unions. No more unions. No unions allowed. But anyway, why I actually stopped though is I wanted to say, so just so everyone knows, I am actually working on a book. I'm working on so many books. I always perpetually am working on books, but I am actually working on a book covering introductory level content. So for new people, I kind of put it on the back burner for a while, but obviously newer people are finding my work now. So the book actually has to get written. I'm also working on a socialist dictionary that will actually just be a reference guide to define a lot of these terms. So I am trying to create resources. It's just a matter of hours in the day. And so, yeah, the book is coming. It's going to be called Re-Education, the Definitive Anti-Communist Guide to Decoding the Left or something like that. So it will be coming this year. I promise I will write it this year. We'll get done this year. I promise, but just not this week because we're doing socialism this week. But the books will be coming, okay? And in the meantime, take notes, ask questions, do all that other stuff too. Yeah, I will let you guys know. I need to start. I started writing the book last year and then I put it on the back burner to write other books. But now that there are so many new people on the channel, I have some awareness that the book actually needs to get finished. All right. I'll do it. I promise.
But I guess more so, my question is, what do we do for those workers? How do we show up? Because a lot of the time, they're getting burnt out and they're leaving because they're done fighting with the executive board, with the clinic directors, it's very tiring work. So I guess like that's a really difficult and hard question, but I would love some advice. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pat Berry. I think I have a lot to offer because, first of all, I'm 80 years old. So I was
80-year-old socialist.
With another senior citizen, my dear, dear friend Sandy. And I can say we know what it was like pre-1972. My dear, dear relative had to travel to Mexico, was blindfolded to get her abortion. My dear, dear friend's sister was arrested in a New York hospital after a botched abortion. So that's the experience that I knew close to home. Now, the second thing I want to bring up is who's from California? Okay, in California, if you can believe this, we are being invaded by anti-abortionists. Beverly Hills turned down an abortion clinic. They had signed the contract, opened it up, and a group called, if you can believe this, Survivors of Abortion Holocaust, I looked up the men who run it. They're all white male capitalists, or they come from
white male capitalists,
history of being right-wing ministers. And they were able to convince the Beverly Hills.
Hey, Garrett, thanks for all the super chats you've been sending today. I refuse to accept a paradigm in which fascism and socialism are the only options. Well, give that some time. I don't believe that classical liberalism inevitably leads to this. Give that some time, because classical liberalism does not mean universal suffrage. It's not that it means universal suffrage. It's that it puts these people's ideas on the same level as other ideas that are better. And so when these people are given a chance to co-opt something, they will co-opt it. It is like a virus. This is a cult. We are dealing with a massive fuck-off cult. And that cult owns the public schools. That cult owns higher education. It's not a matter of universal suffrage necessarily. It's not if you just take away women's ability to vote, this problem is going to go away. Because remember, these people don't vote. They're not achieving their means through electoral ends, right? So the problem is that because this is a mind virus cult that has indoctrinated kids since they were 5 years old, it can co-opt almost any system in our society. It's like a fucking parasite. And so, while I understand that you don't want to give up on classical liberalism yet, I will note that there was a time when I didn't want to give up on it either. And then I watched over 5,000 hours of socialist content, and I realized how much these people are winning. And I came to a different conclusion. And I'm not going to yell at you. I'm just going to encourage you to keep an open mind that classical liberalism may in fact be part of the problem, because if classical liberalism was going to work to solve this problem, it already would have. Okay? Classical liberalism has done nothing to even start to push back on these people at all. And these people have been doing what they're doing for 100 years. But everyone comes to this conclusion in their own time. And I know you're listening and you're paying attention. And I think you're a smart guy. So just keep thinking on that, all right?
A city council to turn down and break a contract for abortion clinic, which I think is outrageous, particular with that creepy name, in a community that is 70% Jewish. And the Simon Wiesenthal Center has said that groups like these people are abusing the name Holocaust by calling themselves survivors of abortion Holocaust.
Oh, they're literally
When
being
I first
anti-Semitic.
saw the
That's
name,
nice.
I said, oh, they're bragging that their mothers didn't get abortions for them. I couldn't figure out what they were saying. And they're claiming that anybody born after 1972 is a survivor of the Holocaust. So they're abusing one of the most horrible crimes against humanity in the name of the protection of fetuses, which is nothing but massive misogyny. So California is under siege as well. And they're going after LGBT protections. They're challenging our state mandate that all children have to learn there are different families and we have to respect all of them. So we're all under siege and we have to work together.
Yeah, I can't.
Comrade.
Hang on.
Yeah, one more thing I want to say is you have to unite with mothers who have given birth, because when they walk into family court in California, they are losing their children to sex abusers, to domestic violence perpetrators over and over again. So I urge all of us to work together with supporting abortion, safe, legal, free abortion on demand. We have to have that. We cannot back down from that. Nothing else, no compromises. And at the same time, to work with these mothers who are often now going improper and are little revolutionaries without knowing it, but have no political conscience.
They're literal revolutionaries without knowing it.
There were a lot of questions in that. And Mary and Ann, do you want to take just like...
Okay, so look, they took several questions in a row, and now the speakers are going to respond to the questions they want to respond to.
Quick few minutes to address some of those. And then we'll get to the other questions in the room.
Julia, let's talk about TERFs. How do we talk about this in the movement? Well, I think, women as a class have been oppressed. And expanding our movements and the language that we use to describe everyone who is impacted by abortion bans does not leave women out.
There's a question on Rumble, why are they wearing masks? Because first of all, this was in 2023, which doesn't excuse it. They still wear masks at this conference today. But the reason they're wearing masks is because it is mandated by the conference, because it is an act of community care. They do still believe the pandemic is real. They believe it's their responsibility as a good comrade to do that. That's why.
Women are people. So when we say people who have abortions, we're talking about women. So it's actually a quite easy argument. And I understand that it hits some
They're
tender
allowed to have their
places
mask
for
off when they're
people
speaking.
who have been drawn into feminism by their own personal oppression on the basis of their gender identity. But from
She could take her mask off right now and it would be fine. It would be within the rules. She's probably not thinking about taking it off because they're just that used to wearing masks.
that same place, people should be able to act in solidarity with trans and non-binary people. That is the basis from which they should recognize the importance of broadening a movement to include the most vulnerable people. I'm not going to say any more about that. Enid, like, hell yes. Yeah, like, just hell yeah? No, I mean, I'll say more. But I think absolutely, like, we are being targeted and we are losing our lives and losing our access to care by the state. And the state is invested in a white supremacist capitalist project that reduces people to, workers that
the state is invested in a white supremacist capitalist project that reduces people to workers. Again, they believe the state is a capitalist state.
Our access to care by the state. And the state is invested in a white supremacist capitalist project that reduces people to, workers that they can exploit. And yeah, I mean, that's.
Hang on. Classical liberalism has not existed for over 100 years. It's not the classical. No, I would, Gareth, I'm going to have to go ahead and disagree with you on that. I think that classical liberalism has absolutely existed for over 100 years. Classical liberalism is not a new thing. Again, like, listen, everyone takes their time in coming to their own conclusions. I think if you stick around the channel, you will see very clearly what classical liberalism has created, because literally everything that you're seeing right in front of you right now has been enabled and empowered by classical liberalism. Classical liberalism will facilitate its own destruction. That Sith is over on Rumble saying that, and he's right. But again, everyone needs to come to their own conclusions in their own time. I appreciate the super chats.
Why we need a mass movement. We have a massive enemy. We cannot fight them unless we are a mass movement. I can talk more about the other stuff maybe in the wrap up.
Yeah, I think it was a really good question about, the attacks from the top and, kind of resisting being co-opted. I mean, that's like our biggest project. That's like what we have to do. I think we just need to have a powerful movement. And I think a lot of that comes from having, more direct action in the streets so that, we can't let politicians make all the decisions when we can show that we have people on our side, because we can turn people out in defense of abortion and in defense of trans care. That's hard to do, but we saw that when Roe was overturned. Like, we saw tons of people out in the streets. It's just, the question is how to sustain that. Let's see. I completely agree with Mary on how to talk about both women and pregnant people. In New York City for abortion rights, which I was in for many years, we used all gender inclusive language, but sometimes we would say women and pregnant people just to be very inclusive. There's nothing wrong. You cannot harm anybody by using gender inclusive language. It just includes everybody, and you want everyone to be part of your movement because it's going to take all of us to win abortion care. Also misogyny affects cis and trans women. So, we're all on the same team. I feel like the question about Howard Brown, Mary could talk about much more extensively than me. But I do notice that there is a real disconnect between abortion care workers and providers and clinic staff and activists. And this is a huge problem, but it's mostly just due to burnout. Like, everyone's tired, everyone's doing so much. But I have seen that, quite a few providers or clinic workers, they don't have time to be activists. Like, they're busy providing care. Like, they don't have time to go to protests every week and, do clinic defense and do all this stuff. Like, they're in it, like, providing this care for us. So I have noticed that there isn't a ton of communication always between abortion workers and abortion activists. And like, I don't know the answer to that. Like, maybe we need more spaces like this where we can have providers and activists in the same space so that we can all say, like, what do we need? Like, how do we support each other? Like, what can we do so that we're like, strategizing together? Because I think the needs of providers and the needs of abortion activists are overlapping, but they're different.
Bro,
And
can I tell you guys, I'm getting so many comments on my YouTube channel from conservatives who are offended at my tone right now. And I just really want to make it clear. I just really want to make it clear for people. There is no universe, and no one in the chat has done anything. I'm not speaking to anyone here. I'm speaking to people who might be listening who are leaving comments on my channel. There is no universe in which I'm going to coddle your feelings. There is no universe in which I am not going to aggressively call out the conservative right for the epic amount of bullshit that the conservative right has forced on all of us, that has left their side completely feckless at fighting the left. There is no universe in which I'm going to moderate my tone. There is no universe in which I'm going to take your feelings into consideration. I'm very sorry if you don't want... I have a tone. Yeah, I do, apparently. And a lot of conservatives are whining about it in my comments right now. The thing is that I am far nicer to you than the left will ever be. And so if conservatives want to have their feelings coddled and they want to just hear all the talking points that they want to hear, then they can go to Fox News and get those talking points there. There is, and by the way, if they do that, they're never going to have access to this content and they're going to have no clue what's going on because Fox News is just going to keep lying to them. But Fox News lies to them with a big old smile on their face, makes them feel really good, and so their feelings get coddled. This is not a place for people who want their feelings coddled. I was thinking about this earlier today. I was like, I'm kind of like an elite teacher on socialism. Like, I mean, there's no one else doing what I'm doing. There's literally no one else in the country that I know of doing what I'm doing. So I think that we can say I'm an elite teacher on socialism. And because I've achieved what I have, and because I have put myself through these 17 rounds of hell that I have put myself through understanding this content, I feel like I can be selective about who I want in my class and who I do not want in my class. There is no elite teacher in the world that welcomes everyone in and coddles everyone's feelings. If people don't want to be here, they don't have to be here. And that's just the way it goes. But I'm not going to lower the standards that I have in order to coddle the feelings of people who just want to hear their talking points regurgitated to them. And if you think I'm too mean or you get yelled at and you don't like it, then there's the door. No one is forcing you to be here. You don't have to stay. This community is for people who have a thick skin, who are not going to get distracted by bullshit, and to understand that our enemy is fucking serious. And no matter how much I yell, no matter how much I swear, no matter how much I might have a condescending attitude, because yes, when I've watched thousands of hours of this shit, I have the right to be condescending because no, you do not know more than me. There is no one in the country right now that knows more than me about this topic. No one. So I will be condescending if I damn well feel like it. And if you don't like it, there's the door. Go somewhere else. That's it. I just had to get that off my chest.
There's not enough communication there. And then the survivors of the abortion Holocaust, that group is crazy. They are nuts. I've been reading about them. They call themselves abortion abolitionists as well as survivors of the abortion Holocaust. So they claim that they want to abolish abortion in the tradition of like abolishing slavery. It is extremely offensive in so many ways. But they also claim that they want to criminalize people who get abortions. So a lot of people in that group are actually actively working towards legislation that would criminalize anybody for getting an abortion. So yes, they are very scary and dangerous, and they really love to use this, kind of like language of the Holocaust and language of abolition and we can't let them get away with it. They are fringe, but they have a lot of power, and they're very good at mobilizing people. So, we need to like take their tactics and then do them better.
Thanks, Joel. Okay, I can count to 5, I promise. I'll take 5 more people. The comrade second to the back row with the white mask. Comrade here with the black shirt. Comrade in the back row with the white shirt with the orange text on it. Wow, okay, so many people. Comrade there with the black shirt, and I'm up to 4, right? So I need one more. Comrade here in the pod.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I'm here in Chicago. Thank you guys so much for your presentations. Mary is one of the people who I feel like I've learned a tremendous amount from over the years. And I wanted to speak to that question of language also because I think, it's been something that people have raised for a long, long time. And I remember not always understanding, some of the reactions that I would see. So people would come to an abortion rights rally and say, I see the word women by itself on these signs and I feel excluded and that hurts me. And it took me a while to honestly like educate myself and understand deeply enough like where that was coming from. I think
I see women on these signs and I feel excluded. Oh shit.
An abortion rights rally and say, I see the word women by itself on these signs and I feel excluded and that hurts me. And it took me a while to honestly like educate myself and understand deeply enough like where that was coming from. I think I understood transgender oppression as a separate phenomenon from misogyny. And I think when you actually really engage with the politics around transgender liberation, it's so beneficial, I think, for everyone who wants to counter any form of gender-based oppression because it compels you to rethink what gender is and what function it serves. And so, people spoke to the, rise in attacks on transgender lives and existence. And, I think that is not just a short-term right-wing strategy. It really stems from the same agenda, the same, basis of capitalism in privatized social reproduction. And so
are you telling me that the oppression of women and the oppression of trans people are part of the same agenda that stems from capitalism? What a great clip. I don't think we ever got this one before. Wow. Let's listen to that again.
Attacks on transgender lives and existence. And, I think that is not just a short-term right-wing strategy. It really stems from the same agenda, the same, basis of capitalism in privatized social reproduction. And so,
private social reproduction?
When we adopt transgender liberation as one and the same struggle with the liberation of all cis people, I think not only does it help us.
What you guys are hearing right now is the basis of Queers for Palestine. And by the way, this presentation was before October 7th, 2023. And what this person is explaining right now is literally the basis of what Queers for Palestine is. Queers for Palestine is saying we are all oppressed by capitalism. No one is free until everyone is free. That's what they're saying. I think you might actually hear Mary say that in this presentation if we get far enough into it. But that is the basis of this. Hey, Kelly, a few hours late, so sorry if you've covered this. Do you see these folks being violent towards anti-abortion protesters in the future? Yeah, I mean, a lot of these people are queer Marxists, Kelly. A lot of these people are absolutely not afraid to be violent. If you are protesting these people, I would always be very diligent and careful, because it would not surprise me at all if they'd get violent. Well, they actually know that's actually, Lynette, that's what we call a conservative bullshit talking point. There are groups in Palestine called Queers for Palestine. So that's not true either. And again, it has nothing to do with being gay. Queer is not about being gay. You can be a straight white man and be queer. Queer is a far left political ideology. It is not about being gay. It is not about being trans. They're not throwing queers off the roof in Palestine. That is a conservative bullshit narrative that is not happening at any scale. The point of Queers for Palestine is Palestinians are oppressed by capitalism. Queers are oppressed by capitalism. We are all oppressed by capitalism. We are all oppressed by the same root. And no one is free. No one is liberated until everyone is free. Therefore, we are all in solidarity with each other. That's what that means. Listen again.
Same agenda, the same, basis of capitalism in privatized social reproduction. And so, when we adopt transgender liberation as one and the same struggle with the liberation of all cis people, I think not only does it help us understand our struggle better, it also helps us build more broad and strong and powerful coalitions. I think, feminism is basically a history of a painful, series of processes of building a coalition that understands that Black women, trans people, cis women, working class people experience gender-based oppression in unique ways and have an interrelated struggle against the way that capitalism and class societies use gender to deepen our oppression. And so, I hope that points somewhat to the question of burnout, is like building that coalition that allows us to be stronger together. But I also think, when we step outside of the question of just like what language do we put on our flyers, I think it's so much more powerful to be coming from a place that says, this is an anti-racist struggle, this is a gender liberation struggle.
They're
and
all
I think
interconnected.
Using that broader language, even if it's a little longer, and even if sometimes some of the people that are coming to our groups newly aren't familiar with that language, ultimately it's so much more valuable. And actually, I think when people see language that's not inclusive at this day and age, people read that as a choice to not be inclusive and to not be in solidarity. And I think we cannot afford to continue to not build that.
3 minutes, comrade.
Hey everyone, my name's Reba. I'm with the group Left Voice. I've been so heartened by hearing everybody talk specifically about connecting our struggles to capitalism and connecting our struggles to the capitalist state, because these are not popular attacks. The attacks on abortion and the attacks on trans rights are not popular.
How did we miss this last time? We watched this when we were still early on in our socialism journey. Hey guys, I just feel really good about everyone realizing that all of our struggles are connected to capitalism. Capitalism and the capitalist state cause all of our problems. Awesome.
I've been so heartened by hearing everybody talk specifically about connecting our struggles to capitalism and connecting our struggles to the capitalist state, because these are not popular attacks. The attacks on abortion and the attacks on trans rights are not popular amongst the masses. It's a top-down attack. And we focus a lot on the far right, but I want to dig into the Democratic Party.
Yes!
Because
Do it!
I hate them so much. And they're for decades, the Democratic Party has been saying that they would codify Roe v. Wade into law, and they never fucking did it. And then under a Joe Biden administration, and Joe Biden, let's all remember, in 2020, acted like we were killing trans people and killing childbearing people by not voting for him. And now, under a Biden administration, there are over 500 attacks on trans lives.
Let's go.
Proposed bills. Roe v. Wade has been overturned. I never thought I would see that happen. And it happened under a Democratic president. And the elephant in the room is that 2024 is right around the corner. And listen, I'm a trans person and I can get pregnant. You are not killing me by not voting for these Democrats, okay? You're not doing it. They're not better. They're just more.
listen, you don't have to vote for the Democrats. I'm going to be fine. I'm a trans person, whatever that means in this case. I'm a trans person. You don't have to vote for the Democrats. You don't have to do it. It'll be fine. The Democrats fucking suck. Can we all please acknowledge that socialists hate Democrats now? That was again
a Democratic president. And the elephant in the room is that 2024 is right around the corner. And listen, I'm a trans person and I can get pregnant. You are not killing me by not voting for these Democrats, okay? You're not doing it. They're not better. They're just more insidious, okay?
They're not better. They're just more insidious. So true. So true. Wonder how many golden nuggets are in these older presentations. So we actually do spend a lot of time going back and watching the older presentations for this purpose. But I'll also say this. Listen, a lot of people in my community, we all learned this stuff together by watching these presentations. And sometimes when we go back and we watch a presentation that we watched like 2 or 3 years ago, we see completely new things in it today. So it's not even just, there is so much socialism content on the internet that is produced all the time. If you know where to look for it, it is an overwhelming amount of information. But if you can sit down and actually listen to what they're saying long enough, they give all this stuff away. The biggest challenge we have is making sure that we're sitting down and listening to as much as we can. And that's why we do so much of this stuff, because it's like, there is an overwhelming amount of content. We will never listen to all the socialism on the internet, but especially when you go back into the older presentations, like even if you go back like a decade, you would not believe some of the shit they were saying 10 years ago. Like, it is mind-boggling because they weren't even thinking about people like us listening to them 10 years ago. Like, some of the things that came out of the mouths of college professors that I've seen on this channel, mind-boggling. So no, there's constantly good stuff like this. We have more than we could ever want. We just need to find the time to actually sit down and watch it. Gareth, you know, what I appreciate about you is you might be arguing with me, but you're sending me money every single time you argue with me. So I'm that's why I'm not upset that you haven't given up classical liberalism yet. Because you keep paying me and you're being so generous with the super chats, and I really do appreciate that. Just to clarify, I know classical liberalism is over 100 years old, but it has not been practiced since the OG progressive era. I'm going to go ahead and disagree with you on that, but that's okay. Classical liberalism has betrayed the favor of the centrist authoritarian mixed economy based on power struggle. I don't feel like arguing with it, but I welcome you to your point and I welcome you to your perspective, and I appreciate the money. Thank you.
And so, in addition, I'm hearing all of this about uniting our struggles and building a mass movement. What do we do when people burn out? What do we do when the movement is not as active in the streets? We need a party of our own. The Democrats are not cutting it. They've never cut it. They've never fought for the working class. They're one of the parties of capital. The only way that we keep this momentum going is by unifying the vanguard of all these struggles, right? Where are the people who are on the front lines of BLM, myself included? Where are the people who are at the front lines of these fighting labor movements? I want UPS workers in unison with like trans rights and with Black rights in a party of the working class and for the working class that has no ties to capital, that holds class independence as a solid line and never, ever, ever tells you that you need to vote for a Democrat in order to protect trans people. It's just not true.
Ha! Again.
I abandoned my notes a long time ago. So but our panelists asked us what initiatives for uniting struggles and fighting for body autonomy are happening on the ground. And I think we need to push the initiative of a militant working class party that's not just working electorally within the capitalist state, but like organizing all the movements together and uniting our struggles and taking to the streets to take power. So yeah, mass movement and self-organization for the working class.
When revolutionary socialists ask for a party of their very own, they're not doing it to win elections. They're doing it to use the party to give people something to join so they can organize. So when they're saying revolution, they do mean overthrowing the capitalist state. But when they form a political party, they're not doing it because they really anticipate doing stuff with elections or getting into politics at all. They're doing it because people need a club to join, to be a part of, to create their social ecosystem to organize in. Just as a quick time check, guys, we are going to have to wrap this up in about 10 minutes. I don't know that we're actually going to make it all the way through the presentation, sadly, because there have been so many good golden nuggets, but we're like, I'm really glad I'm glad we had extra time today, by the way. Like, that actually worked out really well, and I'm glad we watched as much as we have, but we will have to wrap up in about 10 minutes, because as a reminder, we're doing a supporter exclusive spy stream starting around 9:30. If you want to join us for supporter exclusive spy stream, it is open to channel members on YouTube. So if you have a YouTube channel membership, you can find the information in the community tab. It's open to people on my locals, my Patreon, Twitter subscribers, and the very best place to support me is on the Substack. I just put the Substack link in the chat below, so if you want to go sign up and get access to the link, you have plenty of time to do it between now and when we actually start it. We are going inside a live radical revolutionary socialist organizing call starting at round about 9:30 after we get done this. We have plenty of time before the call starts, so you don't have to worry about that, but that's what we're doing next. So we will be wrapping up this stream shortly. And I do appreciate everyone who has come to hang out with me tonight. I hope you guys learned a lot. We will watch for a few more minutes. If you're heading out, please mount the like button on the way out the door. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We will watch for a few more minutes here before we wrap up to go into Spy Stream.
Hey y'all, my name is Brittany. I use she and they pronouns.
Trendolin!
I work at ARC Southeast. Which
Thank you for upgrading to a gold membership, Trendolin.
6 states in our region. I had two things, like really 1.5 things that I wanted to come and say. First, I wanted to kind of challenge the notion or narrative that everyone who is doing the work or providing the service or doing the care is for the people who are accessing the care. I think, I don't know, one example that's coming up for me is like, there are people who are going to abortion clinics fully funded from various abortion funds and still being asked to pay out of pocket for things so that the clinics can have money.
Thanks, Gareth. Appreciate it.
And that's a barrier. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think I would love for us to resist the urge to say that everybody is doing all that they can, because there are a lot of folks inside of reproductive justice, inside of social justice broadly, who are adding barriers as they are, also working to bring them down. And separately, my second.
Thank you. I do see it. Thank you. I appreciate you, Trendolin. I love you. Thank you.
If somebody could speak to what the costs are, some of the costs associated with gender affirming care, gender affirming medical care, and like how people currently are paying for them. I'm trying to figure out like what it would look like for abortion funds to use the current infrastructure to like start, paying for gender affirming care as well. Thank you.
Andy from the Gay Liberation Network, as well as Chicago for Abortion Rights. We're coming for your children. I mean,
how the fuck did we miss that last time? Holy shit! Holy shit! Again?
Affirming care as well. Thank you.
Andy from the Gay Liberation Network, as well as Chicago for Abortion Rights. We're coming for your children. I mean, a lot of the things that Ann was saying, this stuff is so effing old. It goes right back to Anita Bryant. The anti-Semitic tropes of "we're coming for your children" are centuries old. And I think
why is that anti-Semitic?
That we can unite our movements is pointing out how these creeps are not just, it's all as the ADF. It's all as the ADF. It's the same people coming for us, but they're recycling these attacks that are literally centuries old.
How is that
Jerry
anti-Semitic?
Falwell got his start, opposing equal access to Black people by claiming that that was a violation of his religious liberty. That's the same crap that we saw with 303 Creative. I mean, over and over again, these same things. Now, I'm so glad that people are bringing up the Democrats, because our movements have got a choice. Are we going to limit our demands to what's acceptable to the Democrats and their NGO helpers. I mean, so many NGOs.
Again, I just want to point out the number one topic in the entire Q&A is we hate the Democrats. Can we talk about how much we hate the Democrats? Because we really hate the Democrats because the Democrats suck and we should not vote for the Democrats because we really hate them and they suck.
In this town, and I'm sure in other towns, they kiss up to whoever the hell's in power so they can get the goddamn grants, so they can keep their executive director salaries and so forth. Howard Brown, sent around Halstead, they do it over and over again, and we're just supposed to fucking take it. Now, next year, there's going to be a Democratic National Convention in August in this fucking town. And our movements, not just these represented here, but in this entire conference, we've got a choice. Are we going to limit our demands? Are going to limit ourselves to just being fucking cheerleaders for these fuckers who are just going to give us what they want and we're supposed to be quiet about and just be grateful it's not Trump or DeSantis.
Study and brave, comrades. Study and brave. Yes.
Hey, I'm Rosie. I'm from Turf Island, also known as England. I had a couple of questions. One, I guess, coming from the UK where we have a National Health Service, I really noticed the way that reproductive health and gender affirming care and abortion access is very much siphoned off from the rest of healthcare in the US. Certainly, there are many problems in the UK about the way that gender affirming care is accessed, and that's a whole other story. But I do think that one of the reasons why we haven't seen the same attacks as we have in the US or the same valence is because there is a really embedded sense in the British public that you have a right to access healthcare. And I feel like that is so missing from a lot of the conversations around reproductive health here. Obviously, like during the Bernie campaign, whatever you think of Bernie, there was, a real conversation around Medicare for all, or however you want to frame a kind of taxation-based universal healthcare system. And I guess I'm interested in where the reproductive health and trans affirming health movement kind of fits into that now. Like, how much can we be raising universal demands for healthcare? I absolutely agree. This is an extremely gendered, extremely patriarchal attack that we're seeing, but it is also a universalist attack in that way. And I think, I'm interested to see what you guys think about, where that kind of, it's true that bodily autonomy is deeply gendered, but from the way I see it, all healthcare is about bodily autonomy, right? We should also
all
be thinking
healthcare
about
is
in those
bodily
terms.
autonomy.
And then my second question was about how we build a fight back. I know that the work that you guys and the organizations you work with have been really great and doing, the Lord's work actually. But it's noticeable that a lot of the kind of defense of abortion access and defense of gender affirming care has been from very scrappy activist organizations, direct action organizations, and I know
that means
Mary,
Antifa
you've had experiences
mostly
with the private sector kind of filling in a lot of the gaps of trans affirming healthcare, and I guess I'm interested in where are the unions in all of this, and
the
how do we build
unions
those links? Particularly
where are the unions
attacks in the US on educators, on doctors. How do we get those unions involved in this fight and kind of build those?
I want to get Mary's response in. I'm just going to fast forward a little bit because I want you guys to see when Mary speaks again, because my recollection is that it's glorious. But I just want to fast forward to get her speaking, and then we're going to wrap it up. They're just taking more and more and more questions, and then they're going to give Mary a final chance to wrap it up along with the other one. And you guys need to see her wrap up because she is just the star of this presentation. I'm sorry we didn't get to watch the whole thing, but we did watch most of it. Okay, let's get Mary's final words on the topic.
We need to call them out.
Planned Parenthood specifically. So far, both of our movements have been dominated by nonprofit NGOs who claim to be the voice, right? And they are doing or not doing legislation well. They are advocating in very limited places. But that's Planned Parenthood, that's Gay Inc., that's, it's
Gay Inc.
Those organizations are claiming to be representative of our communities and then making deals with Democrats. Like that's all they then just stumping for Democrats and trying to get Democrats in office. And so that is not our movement. Those organizations do not represent the revolutionary spirit of both of our movements.
Not our
and
movement.
We cannot let them be the voice of our movements when they are losing. We lost. Their strategy is a losing strategy. So no longer can, I love yelling about Biden, like, let's do it, right? Like, look, all of their promises are fucking broken. We cannot depend on them for anything. So all of our fight has to come from below. We have to organize our workplaces, especially reproductive health organizations, especially places where trans people get care. Those unions can fight for better policies to take care of patients better, to make costs lower for care and for medications. I'd be happy to talk to the comrade from ARC about the cost of gender-affirming care and how abortion funds can get in on it. I think that's brilliant. And absolutely, we need Medicare for all. I do think that is the best place to unify our movements. It's hard because that's a dusty ass movement, right? Like it's not. It's the same people doing the same things, and I think they recognize we need it. We need new people. We need new strategies, right? But we have to join up and learn from what has worked and be very honest about what has not, because we have not won. We are losing more and more every day. And so we can't just sit idly by and be like, well, that would be nice. We have to actually devote ourselves to the project of liberation. And yes, ultimately, and if that wasn't clear from the end of my talk, that will require a revolution. We cannot be free under capitalism. We cannot be free in this society as long as any person is in prison, as long as any person is denied health care for something necessary. No, that will never be free. So if your project of your organization is some kind of liberation, you need to get with the other organizations that are about liberation. And yes, we need to build broader coalitions. And Naomi Klein, I think, is speaking tonight, yeah? One of my favorite quotes from Naomi Klein is, if your coalition is not arguing, it is not big enough. So if you guys are all about it, you got to find some people to mess you up, right? Like you got to start talking. And that's going to be the very difficult work of unifying our movements, because they come from places of powerful, dangerous, life-threatening oppressions. And people sometimes are just looking for people to affirm the fact that they have experienced those things. So how can we do that and take on a revolutionary project? How can we be community care and collective liberation? That's the movement I want to be in.
We are not free until everyone is free. That is the basis of Queers for Palestine. That is what they believe. Capitalism is the root cause of every single problem. Every single person is oppressed by capitalism, and they need a revolution against capitalism. That's what they're working for. We do have to wrap it up, guys, but I do want to just take not that one. Bookmark asked another question, and I'm just going to get this, hang on. We're going to get our spy stream information on the stream, guys, because we are going to be going into a spy stream. If you want to join us for spy stream, you need to become a member of the Substack, a supporter on Locals, Patreon, Twitter subscriber, or YouTube channel member. You can find the information to join us for spy stream, where we are going to be going inside a real radical revolutionary socialist organizing call in very shortly. Okay, so I do have to wrap up this stream so we can start our spy stream, but I'll take this question very quickly. Does trans mean anti-capitalist, or is it still something to do with sexual expression? Well, there's a difference between trans people who uphold the gender binary, trans people who still believe that men and women are a thing, and queer Marxists like Mary Bowman, who we just saw. queer Marxists do not believe that gender is real. Okay? So the difference is, if they uphold the gender binary, then they believe that trans is about transitioning from man to woman or woman to man. Then that is something that is still that is not an anti-capitalist ideology. But if they believe in non-binary, or they want to abolish the gender binary, then when they say trans, they don't mean transition. They mean transform, or they mean transcend. So I've written about this in the Woke 101 section over on the Substack, karlyn.substack.com. You can go to the Woke 101 section and access my full articles where I break all this stuff down. I am happy to go into this in more detail another day, but that's essentially it. There are some trans people who are pro-capitalism. There are queer Marxists who are against the gender binary, who are anti-capitalist. When they use the word trans, they don't mean transition, they mean transform or transcend. The member streams will always be up for members, so you can watch it on demand later. Yep. And our last super chat of the day, it's got to come from Gareth. Please check out Isabella Peterson, Rose Wilder Lane, and Ayn Rand for positive alternatives. I like Rand just fine. I'm going to take a screenshot of this, Gareth, because you've been such a good supporter today. If you feel black-pilled, Rand's Ford Hall lectures are epic, as is Lane's credo. Hey, I will keep that in mind. Gareth, thank you so much. Special shout-out to Gareth for sending in so many super chats today. Special shout-out to everyone. We are now 50% of the way to our week-long goal, so I think we're going to meet this goal. I have faith. But for right now, guys, I do need to wrap it up. We will be starting Spy Stream in about 5-ish minutes, maybe 6 or 7. I don't know. We're going to start it in less than 10 minutes. So everyone go take a quick bathroom break. Go find the stream information over on the Substack or on Locals or Patreon or Twitter subscriptions or YouTube channel membership. And we will be going inside a real socialist organizing call very soon. And it's going to be crazy and it's going to be awesome and you're going to love it. All right. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for the people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.